Oh, hey, Tom. I wanted to connect some of your calls today back to that 1980 trip by John Connally to the Middle East to commit treason and felonies that helped swing the election to Ronald Reagan by telling the leaders of, I guess it was 11 Middle Eastern countries to communicate to Iran not to accept the peace deal, which allowed Jimmy Carter to lose that crucial bit of support that could have changed the outcome of the election. And I think the lesson that I take from it, and to connect your calls together, you talked about the Vietnam War, you were talking about the Iraq War, you were talking about the 2004, election fraud. I just like to connect those things together because this is the time in a 12-year period at this crucial hinge point in our country's history that an election the outcome was potentially changed by the Republican presidential candidate's campaign coordinating felony and treason that ends up extending wars. So, I've called you before about the Chenot affair, and LBJ knew, and he kept quiet.
Right, that was the audio I played in the first hour.
Yeah, and I mentioned to you that Humphrey knew because he was told, and he made a decision not to tell the public because he thought we'd have a civil war if they understood the corruption.
Yep.
And
for people, if I can pause you right there, Patrick, for just a moment, just for people who may be tuning in, I probably only about 10% of the audience that was listening when I played this in the first hour are still listening, because that's just the nature of radio. About every 15 minutes, you see about a 10 or 15% turnover in your audience. This is a clip of Lyndon Johnson calling Everett Dirksen. He was the senior-most Republican in the United States Senate. He was arguably the most powerful Republican in the United States. He was an elder statesman. He was, generally speaking, a good guy, Everett Dirksen. I had and continue to have a lot of respect. He had this very deep, gravelly voice. And this, you're going to hear Lyndon Johnson saying what Patrick just said, which is, I don't want to get this in the campaign. He didn't want Americans to learn that Richard Nixon was committing treason because he thought it would harm the presidency. He thought it would harm the nation. This is Lyndon Johnson's call to Everett Dirksen.
Here's the latest information we got. The agent says that they just talked to the boss in New Mexico, and that he says that you must hold out. Just hold on until after the election. We know what Q is saying to them out there. Yeah. We're pretty well informed on both ends. Now, I'm reading their hand, Everett. I don't want to get this in the campaign. That's right. And they oughtn't to be doing this. This is treason. I know.
I know. Dirksen didn't say, no, it's not treason.
Tom,
he said, I know.
Tom, this is so important. Can I connect this up to the Iraq War? Because we're on the 20th anniversary.
Yep.
And, give me just a tiny bit of room here. The Vietnam War goes on 6 years because of this treason. So
That's
your
correct.
friend who called, the 71 draft, all those body bags coming home. My brother was in the counter-inaugural. Yeah, my brother was in the counter-inaugural, in the street, got arrested carrying caskets when Nixon was elected in 72. I don't think that Nixon would have bugged Watergate and committed all of those crimes if it hadn't gone secret and unprosecuted what happened. People who knew didn't bring it forward, including Hubert Humphrey.
I agree.
So then the question is, what did we do about it? Well, we did the church committee. We got rid of mass surveillance. My brother had a red file. The NSA was taping phones. We had a court suit. We got rid of that. We created FISA. All of these things to take back our democracy, to stop illegal wars like Cambodia and Laos that led to a genocide because we destroyed a government and destabilized with secret illegal bombing.
Yep.
So the idea was, let's stop that. Okay, well, did we learn our lesson? No, we didn't. Because William Colby was in the airport, the CIA director, getting this information, even if Reagan's campaign didn't know, and they went and John Connally and Ben Barnes met with Reagan. I don't believe for 2 seconds that they didn't know. But Daddy Bush was a CIA director, too. So what did Daddy Bush do? He had Cap Weinberger, Secretary of Defense, committing felonies, carrying through on their side of the deal to send arms to Nicaragua.
That's right.
And I stood up in a cape as Yeah, well, yes, and I stood up in a cape, and we did the 42 of us, because 42 people had just been killed in Nicaragua, and we did the Grim Reaper at Harvard when he spoke, before we knew he was a felon, before we knew he deserved a jail cell. And then when I had my young son, after Bush was elected in 2000, we heard Daddy Bush, George H.W. Bush, say on Diane Rehm, and you can pull up the tape, that I always knew I was going to pardon them. So Ollie North had his conviction overturned, but Poindexter, who was the top guy in the White House, he got pardoned.
Yep.
And so that led directly to this impunity. And then the tapes came out that when the Iran-Contra thing was being hatched in the Reagan White House in 87, that Daddy Bush, former CIA director, was in the room, knew everything. He should have been prosecuted, but that was kept secret. So how does that tie together to today? Well, we got back to having NSA mass surveillance. We got back to having assassinations with drones. We had WMD lie take us into Iraq, and 4,500 Americans are dead from the Iraq war. 1 million related Iraqis dead, 228,000 from the war. And we destroyed their water systems. We killed all those children. And we didn't get accountability from the 80 situation. We lost the independent counsel law, so we couldn't prosecute Trump. This is a straight line of impunity.
Yeah. And it runs through the Republican Party.
Well, the Democrats went along with it, unfortunately, and they went along with the Iraq war, and they went along, my boss, Carl Levin, went along with getting rid of the independent counsel law.
Oh, geez.
And it was a terrible mistake. Moynihan went after the NSA because they spent $100 million putting together the office in Virginia where they were going to run their mass surveillance, and they hadn't told Congress. And he was head of intelligence, and he wrote a book on secrecy, and he made them destroy the building, take it down, repurpose it. And he would not let them create mass surveillance. And then Democrats and Republicans, Bush and Obama, made it legal, created a set of rules behind it, and we needed Ed Snowden to tell us it was happening. The Church Committee had already taken care of that.
You're right.
My boss, Colin Seitz, in the Third Circuit, was the chief judge on the appeals court for the Star Chamber, for the FISA panel. They didn't grant those warrants. We had a collapse of the rule of law, and this 1980 arms for hostages secret deal to deny Carter a fair chance of winning, tied back to what Nixon did, is an example of where we went wrong.
Right. And it all paved the way for Trump and his criminality. I mean, here, this is a story from a couple of weeks ago that I was going to do on the air and never got around to. The headline is, DHS admits it tried to manufacture fake terrorists for Trump's political gain. This was an investigation that Ron Wyden did, that Chad Wolf was pulling together secret dossiers on people here in Portland, and they wanted to describe them as terrorists. They fully intended to, actually, and it just kind of got blown up at the last minute. But this was, and then Trump was going to use that as his justification for attacking the United States. In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free, and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com. It's Wednesday. We've got 3 days, including today. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's it. And then this is all over. So if you have not yet called and made your contribution to Free Speech TV, 877-378-8669, please call now. Now is a great time because Free Speech TV needs the help, and you can be part of the solution. You can help out in a big way. Just a small amount of money from a large number of people is what keeps this network going, and you can be one of those people. If you haven't already called to make a contribution, if you haven't gone to freespeech.org, please consider doing so now. This is especially as we're wrapping this thing up. We're also trying to hit that $210,000 goal, I believe it is. Yeah, we had about 140,000 to go yesterday. I don't have the report yet on where we're at on that, but we were a little behind, and so we really need people to kind of pick up the pace and step up to the challenge, as it were, because we want to keep this network on the air. We want to keep the shows on the air. We want to keep growing Free Speech TV and building Free Speech TV. It's just an extraordinary thing to have a genuine, progressive, nonprofit television network operating here in America and visible all around the world. I mean, you go to freespeech.org and just click Watch Live, and anywhere you are on the planet, you can watch Free Speech TV. So tell your friends about it, okay? The $10,000 match I mentioned, or the $10,000 gift, that is a tip of the hat, and many thanks to our Frontline Funder group. By the way, if you have the means and you'd like to participate in a group like that for the next pledge drive, let them know when you call in. But right now, that is Ed and Yvonne in Pennsylvania, Andrew in San Diego, Bill in Boise, Idaho, Brenda in Coppers Cove, Texas, Carol in Bandon, Oregon, Charlene in Houston, Texas, Diane in Avalon, California, Diane in Santa Rosa, California, Joe in Washington, D.C., Mac and Tiana in Cowdrey, Colorado, Mike in Tippecanoe County, Indiana, Reggie in Raleigh, North Carolina, Sam in Desert Hot Spring, California, Steve in McLean, Virginia, Suzanne in Catlett, Virginia, Tracy in Jacksonville, Oregon, and Vivian and Bobby in La Puente, California. So those are our frontline funders. Those are the people who have made matches, and in this case, this $10,000 gift available to all of us, or available to Free Speech TV. You can also, by the way, text FSTV to 44321 if you want to give on your phone. I mean, there's a lot of ways, or you can just go to freespeech.org/donate or call 877-378-8669. There's a bunch of premiums that are associated with one-time gifts. If you give $20, a one-time gift, you can get the Free Speech TV, the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Free Speech TV window cling, or the I'm Voting Are You car magnet. With a $50 gift, there is the Free Speech TV keychain and the window cling, or the Free Speech TV fall canvas tote bag. It's just a really cool little tote bag. I've shown it to you before. You probably have it memorized by now, but this is it, and it's just a great little tote bag, and holds a lot, and it's got a little button here that you could wrap this thing around, and so that your things don't fall out as you're walking down the street and whatnot. Canvas tote bag, that's with a $50 gift. With a $75 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV baseball cap or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug. Nice porcelain mug. With a $120 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV t-shirt or a copy of my newest book, The Hidden History of American Democracy, Rediscovering Humanity's Ancient Way of Living, going back to how the Indians, actually, Native Americans, influenced American democracy, autographed by the author. Or Rising Up, the Power of Narrative and Pursuing Racial Justice, that's Sonali's new book, or David Pakman's new book, Think Like a Detective, A Kid's Guide to Critical Thinking. Those are all with a $120 gift. Pick one. With a $200 gift, there is the Free Speech TV hoodie, which is really, really kind of cool. and Free Speech TV on the front, and the future is inclusive on the back, which is great. With a $240 gift, you can sign up for our Free Speech TV live Zoom-based meet and greet where we get together and hang out and chat for an hour. We do those a couple times a year. And with a $1,000 gift, there's the in-person meet and greet here in Portland. We are going to work these out one of these days soon. Or the entire collection, all 9 books in the Hidden History series, Democracy and Guns and Voting and Monopolies and the Supreme Court, the whole bunch. Every single one autographed by the authors. You have the whole show.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, a lot going on in the world on this Thursday. America gets a new civilian climate corps. Trump orders the government to shut down. I'll go into the details of that and how that's going to affect you and me and everybody else. In the second hour of our program, Phil Itner is going to drop by with an update on what's going on in Ukraine. President Zelensky is at the Capitol right now meeting with legislators. The White House is proposing $24 billion in additional aid to Ukraine. The Putin lovers caucus, you've got a number of Republicans now who are following Donald Trump and Steve Bannon, the pro-fascist faction in the GOP, in saying, no, we shouldn't help out Zelensky because, you know, we want Putin to win this. It's really disgusting. In fact, I got a press release yesterday that Cornel West and Medea Benjamin and a few other people are having an event in Washington, D.C., I think this weekend, to ask for Russia to win the war. It's like, what's wrong with these people? Anyhow, Phil Itner is going to be here at the top of the second hour. Also, why 1/3 of Europeans now vote anti-establishment in the second hour. And a crazy alert, the GOP are complaining to Merrick Garland on a huge issue, a really big issue. I mean, they're very worried about this, the World Naked Bike Ride. I'll tell you about that in the second hour. In the third hour of the program, yesterday we talked about how home insurance is going away because of climate change. Now 40 million American homes are overvalued. Get ready if you live in any of these places. I'll tell you about this. And also, a geeky science. Does peak happiness happen in life at age 70? Really? Interesting study. Hundreds of thousands of people. It's fascinating. Update on the immediate news, by the way, that's going on. The House of Representatives, this is really sad. I mean, it's just really sad. Kevin McCarthy, first off, yesterday, or I guess it was Monday, Kevin McCarthy dropped a bill, the Republican, proposal, their latest funding bill to fund the government. We run out of money, at the end of this month, a week and a half. And so they proposed an 80% cut in grants to schools in low-income areas. After all, poor people don't need education. A 70% cut in the fruit and vegetable benefit for the Women and Infant Children Food Program. Yeah, women and infant children don't need food. And a $665 million cut to the EPA's Safe Drinking Water Access Program. After all, who needs drinking water? As Robert Reich notes, the cruelty is the point. So this morning, they tried to do this. That, by the way, did not pass, of course. The Democrats wouldn't go along with it. And they couldn't even get all of the Republicans to go along with it. So that failed. So this morning it was like, well, let's try to do a defense spending bill. This is like just the stuff that you would expect would be just normal stuff. I mean, Republicans never saw a defense budget they didn't like until now. And now that, you've got a chunk of the Republican Party that's dancing not to the tune of American democracy or the history of the United States or classic Republican leadership from Dwight Eisenhower to Ronald Reagan to George W. Bush. Now you've got a faction within the Republican Party and outside of it, the Stephen Miller, Steve Bannon group, who are nakedly dancing to the tune of Vladimir Putin instead. They're, in with the world's autocrats. It's Donald Trump. He never met an autocrat he didn't love. He was brothers with Kim Jong-un. He's buddies with Mohammed bin Salman, the dictator of Saudi Arabia, who murdered a Washington Post reporter. Just overnight, there was a whole bunch of missile strikes from Russia, long-range missile strikes, on 5 different cities in Ukraine. Can you imagine if that was happening to us? Obviously, these Republicans can't imagine it. They're pretending like, oh, yeah, it's no big deal. It's just, a dictator in Russia attacking a nearby democracy. Who cares about that? We don't care about democracies. This is just insane. Meanwhile, my op-ed today over at HartmannReport.com is about the Civilian Climate Corps. I mentioned this a couple days ago, kind of in passing, and wrote an op-ed about it yesterday. It's at the beginning of the week, on Monday, Senator Ed Markey and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had put forward legislation that would create a civilian climate corps modeled after Franklin Roosevelt's Civilian Conservation Corps. Now, back in the 1930s, in 1933, America was both in the depths of the Republican Great Depression and facing an environmental disaster of unparalleled proportions. It was called the Dust Bowl. The Dust Bowl lifted 1.2 billion tons of soil from over 100 million acres, blowing it as far east as New York City, where it browned out skies for weeks. It was just a major disaster. The Dust Bowl killed over 7,000 people, left at least 2 million homeless. Sometimes it's like stories you hear from people make things real for you. Dennis Weaver was an old friend of mine, and he's now passed away, but the actor. And he told me the story of, and in fact he wrote about it in his autobiography, All the World's a Stage, that I wrote the foreword for. Told me the story of, when the Dust Bowl hit, they were living on a little farm in Oklahoma, and the Dust Bowl just wiped them out. And so his parents bundled him and his brother and sister into an old beat-up station wagon and drove it from Oklahoma to Oregon. They ended up right here in Oregon, where the family, and Dennis was a child at the time. He was 8 or 10 years old, something like that, maybe 12. And they worked as migrant farm workers. They picked strawberries here in Oregon until Dennis, got into his early 20s and headed down to Hollywood and got a job in the movies. And, the rest, as they say, was history. But, he told me these stories about the Dust Bowl and how dramatic it was and how it actually killed people. And it had a huge effect on agriculture. Wheat production fell by 36%, corn by 48% on one single day, Black Sunday, April 14, 1935. The skies were blackened by an estimated 3 million tons of topsoil from the Great Plains in one day. The main cause of the Dust Bowl was unsustainable agriculture practices and deforestation all across the central parts of the United States, that combined with a 7 or 8 year drought in the 1930s. And so the solution to this, Franklin Roosevelt believed, was to plant trees. One tree, because the leaves are evaporative surfaces. Moisture evaporates off a tree's leaves much more rapidly than it does from the ground. And the leaves represent such a large evaporative area that it's roughly 4 times the footprint of the tree itself. So the trees promote what's called water cycling. They draw water from deep under the earth up through the roots, up into the trunk and ultimately into the leaves, and then that water evaporates out of the leaves and, forms clouds and downwind rain. So that stops the drought, number one. And number two, the trees serve as a windbreak, so they stop the blowing of the dust. So, the idea was, let's plant trees. So the Civilian Conservation Corps planted more than 3 billion trees. They built trails and shelters in over 800 parks. They planted over 200 million trees in a belt from Bismarck, North Dakota to Amarillo, Texas. This was a belt of trees specifically set up to break the eastward blowing winds. And they planted seedlings on marginalized and abandoned farmland all over the country. I mean, you can still see these forests when you drive. I used to see this a lot in Michigan. Louise and I used to drive up north from Lansing for weekend holidays and things. And you look at the forest as you're driving by, and you just see all these trees in straight rows. Those are the old CCC trees. So anyhow, when Biden was elected, when he became president on January 27th, 2021, 3 weeks into office, or a week in office, he issued an executive order calling for a civilian climate corps that would, and this is what Ed Markey and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez put into legislation, along with 49 colleagues. Their program would hire 1.5 million people. Now, that has no chance in Congress right now because Republicans control Congress, and Republicans don't give a rat's ass about the climate. In fact, you know, they want to take more money from fossil fuel billionaires in the fossil fuel industry, so they will do everything they can to stop anything to stop climate change. So it's going to have to wait. But Biden rolled it out yesterday. He just did it. Now, he couldn't do the 1.5 million people that the legislation envisions. He just doesn't have that kind of money in an executive budget that he can bring about by executive order. But he is, the program he is putting together, which will operate under kind of as a division of AmeriCorps, will hire 20,000 people. And you know, if you know a young person who would like to join, you actually get a paycheck. It's over at whitehouse.gov/climatecorps, C-O-R-P-S, climate, C-O-R-P-S. And of course, all the information is over at hartmanreport.com. The title of today's piece, America Gets a Civilian Climate Corps. So, you know, that's what's going on, broadly speaking. Donald Trump has ordered Republicans to shut down the government, and let me tell you how that's going to affect you. And of course, we'll be picking up your phone calls. It's 16 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. It's your media support group for We the People. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia and Israel are talking. We'll see how that shakes out. That's going to be interesting. And welcome back. Let's see here. This is an interesting story. This is from the Tampa Bay Times editorial board. The headline is, "Stop Allowing Zealots to Waste Florida School District's Time and Money." And they talk about how just two people, a transplanted New Yorker and an Escambia County English teacher, are responsible for almost half of the book banning attempts made in Florida schools last year. It's amazing. It's just amazing. Let's pick up some of your calls here. Dina in Boulder, Colorado. Hey, Dina, what's on your mind today?
Did you disappear?
No, I'm here, and it sounds like you are too.
Yeah, yes, I am. Let's see. I'm calling about the trees. You're talking about the benefit of trees, to skills of the leaves and everything, holding the earth together. But I'm gonna challenge you, Tom. A month ago, you scorned a Republican who proposed planting 1 trillion trees. The thing to do is to challenge that person and make it a deal.
It was
Plant
a joke.
trees.
The Republicans are not serious about planting 1 trillion trees. That was their response to, we need to do something about climate change. Well, then let's plant 1 trillion trees. Right.
Well,
I mean, planting trees is a fine thing. I'm all in favor of it, and I said it at the time. But this was not a serious proposal by the Republican. I forget who said it now. And it's nothing that anybody in the GOP is going to pay any attention to, Dina. And
but you can amplify it and quote them and challenge them.
Yeah, fine. If they want to plant 1 trillion trees, I'm all in favor of it. Bring it on.
Yeah, encourage them. Yeah. Hold them to their joke, you know?
Yeah. Well, good luck with that.
That's my point.
Okay. Thank you, Dina. Back to Florida, money being wasted. The two culture warriors, these two people, just two people in Florida. You see, DeSantis got this law passed that makes it really easy for people to challenge books in Florida, to ban books, basically, to set up the banning of books. And so these two culture warriors submitted 600 of the 1,100 book challenges since July of 2022, according to a recent Tampa Bay Times investigation, because DeSantis passed this law. The lawmakers require school officials to remove any content deemed inappropriate and encourage parents to file complaints, which trigger immediate removal. In other words, a parent complains, and in this case, a parent complains 600 times. There's no way this guy read 600 books, or this woman, whoever it was. And the books have to be immediately pulled from the shelves. And then, once they're pulled from the shelves, then the evaluation process, which can take a year or so, and so the books are just not available to kids. This is just shocking, frankly, that in America, in the home of free speech, in the nation where, with the First Amendment, in a nation built on freedom of speech, that we would have a movement within the Republican Party, within one of our two major political parties, to ban and burn books. There was a photo that I saw on Twitter this morning of a bunch of Republicans in, I believe it was Oklahoma, using flamethrowers to burn books. I mean, this is something, the last time we saw this was in Nazi Germany in 1933. And now it's here. This is today's GOP. We'll be right back. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Back in the day, the Republicans had these kind of soft, big lies, Ronald Reagan telling us that if we just cut taxes on billionaires, it'll trickle down to all the rest of us. And climate change isn't caused by fossil fuels, of course. Voter fraud is caused by black people, and gays and lesbians and trans people want to convert your children. All these lies. Public school teachers are communists. They really are not working. So now the Republicans have a new strategy because their lies are not working, including their lies about COVID and about Russia and about the media and everything in public schools, abortion. Because their lies aren't working, they're actually going after university-level researchers who look into how lies are created and propagated across social media and in the media and in politics. It's an amazing story reported by both the Washington Post and the New York Times. I got a whole rant about it over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out. And welcome back. Holy cow. Donald Trump, this is just like how it is now with the GOP. And I'm just astonished by this. I probably shouldn't be. It's a phenomenon that's happening all around the world. In fact, I want to talk about that a little more in the second hour. I think this is, frankly, the consequence of Ronald Reagan and Maggie Thatcher, and then ultimately the rest of the developed world adopting Milton Friedman's neoliberalism back in the 1980s. In fact, the late 1970s. And now you've got this blowback to it. But a lot of it is also driven by the immigration crisis, and a lot of that is being driven by the climate crisis. But anyhow, we've got this dynamic now where when Donald Trump says jump, House Republicans say, how high? When he says overthrow democracy, they say, yes, sir. Name the date and time. When he says, shut down the economy, throw Americans out of work, destroy the lives of millions, throw the country into chaos. This is what Vladimir Putin wants. Please do it. The Republicans say, sir, yes, sir. And that's what they're doing. Last night, Donald Trump tweeted that he wants to stop the prosecutions against him. He wants Republicans to stop these prosecutions by refusing to fund the government. If the Department of Justice has no money, it can't pay Jack Smith's salary. If Jack Smith's not being paid his salary, theoretically he stops working and the people working for him stop working. The federal court system might even shut down. This is literally what he's calling for. Last night he tweeted, or he Truth Socialed, a very important deadline is approaching at the end of the month. Now, he's talking about when the government gets shut down on October 1st. He says Republicans in Congress can and must defund all aspects of crooked Joe Biden's weaponized government that refuses to close the border and treats half the country as enemies of the state. The border is closed and nobody's treating half the country as enemies of the state. Obviously, this is, lies and hyperbole. He goes on, this is also the last chance to defund these political prosecutions against me. They failed on the debt limit, but they must not fail now. Use the power of the purse and defend the country. Right, use the power of the purse. I don't think Donald Trump wrote that. It's not the kind of phrase that he would normally use, but this is what's going on. So if they shut down the government, and it looks like they're going to, and by the way, there's economists who are looking at this. You know, this is Greg Valerie. He's the chief U.S. policy strategist at AGF Investments, and Terry Haynes, the founder of Pangea Policy, and Goldman Sachs economists. They're all saying, well, Valerie is saying 70% chance of a shutdown, perhaps one lasting into the winter. The Pangea Policy guy said this won't be at all like the one-off short shutdowns that had minimal effects on the markets. This will take months to resolve. And Goldman Sachs says GDP will be reduced by 2%, 0.2% every week it lasts. Representative Andy Ogles tweeted, less government isn't a bad thing. You know, shutting down the government is a good thing in his mind. So what's going to happen when the government shuts down? 2.1 million federal employees will stop, their paychecks will stop. Hundreds of thousands of them will be forced to work anyway, those in our military and police agencies. The White House said in a memo yesterday, said all active duty military personnel and many law enforcement officers are going to be forced to remain at work without being paid. They said, the White House said this will increase the risk that FEMA's disaster relief fund is depleted. It will complicate new emergency response efforts if additional catastrophic disasters occurred. It would mean, quote, 10,000 children across the country would immediately lose access to Head Start. The EPA would mostly stop inspecting drinking water facilities, hazardous waste sites, and chemical facilities. The Food and Drug Administration could be forced to delay food inspections. The Small Business Administration wouldn't approve new loans. Medicare and Social Security will continue to write checks, but if you are a new enrollee, your application will not be processed. People receiving food assistance will struggle to get those benefits. This is not a good thing, period.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Every time there's a Democrat in the White House, Republicans in the House of Representatives do this to try to damage the economy to hurt that Republican's re-election efforts. Well, the week is sliding by, and we really need your help here at Free Speech TV, or there at Free Speech TV, I guess. I'm not an employee, but my show is on the network. We're still behind for our pledge drive, and behind our goals, and your help is needed. It's needed very much. Today through Friday, we have that $10,000 donor challenge, where this group of frontline funders, some just great people who got together and, actually Free Speech TV, I think, pulled them together, and said that if we can bring in 500 new donors or subscribers or sustaining member, whatever you want to call it, if we can bring in 500 new people over the course of this week, by the end of the day, Friday, then they will make a $10,000 donation to Free Speech TV. And so, your $25 gift might be the thing that pushes us over the top. So in particular, if you have never donated to Free Speech TV, if you've been one of those people, which is the vast majority, probably well over 95% of all the people who watch this program on this network, who are just thinking, well, somebody else will do it, please consider becoming one of the few and the select, the inside circle. Become part of this great television network by making a contribution by calling 877-378-8669 or going to freespeech.org and making your contribution right now. We really need your help. And this network is nothing to be taken for granted. It is an extraordinary gift to basically, in my mind, to the world. I mean, we don't just talk about America, we talk about democracy worldwide. Maintaining democracy in the United States is critical to democracy worldwide. There is a battle going on right now between democratic forces, the United States, European governments, and Costa Rica and some other good progressive democratic countries, and the autocrats, the Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, Axis, North Korea, you know, who want top-down government as opposed to bottom-up government. And that war is fought largely in the information space. Putin and China now, there was just a story a couple days ago about how China is pouring millions of dollars into propaganda here in the United States, trying to cause Americans to hate our political system, to not trust our political system. Russia is doing the same thing. You've got a bunch of, essentially cynics and malcontents who are constantly trash-talking our form of government and our politicians, thinking that it's very fashionable. You know, it's just very fashionable to be so down on America. And, you know, I mean, some of these are people that I've known, and it's so saddening and so discouraging to see them adopt, you know, Putin and Xi's worldview that American democracy is failed. I mean, obviously, we've got a lot of problems, but we're not going to solve them by just throwing up our hands. We're not going to solve them by just constantly criticizing. We've got to come up with positive solutions. And there's a lot that we can do in that area. And we talk about that here on this program and on Free Speech TV generally. So let's help keep this network on the air, and let's help expand good quality programming right here on Free Speech TV. The frontline funders who put up that $10,000 gift that will come to Free Speech TV if we can add 500 people this week are Andrew in San Diego, Bill in Boise, Idaho, Brenda in Copperas Cove, Texas, Charlene in Houston, Texas, Carol in Bandon, Oregon, Diane in Avalon, California, Diane in Santa Rosa, California, Joe in Washington, D.C., Mac and Tiana in Cowdrey, Colorado, Mike in Tippecanoe County, Indiana, Reggie in Raleigh, North Carolina, Sam in Desert Hot Spring, California, Steve in McLean, Virginia, Suzanne in Catlett, Virginia, Tracy in Jacksonville, Oregon, and Vivian and Bobby in La Puente, California. And, you know, these people are really helping a lot. And so please pitch in, just, you know, whether it's $5 a month or whether it's, you know, a $100 gift, whatever it may be, please call now, 877-378-8669. There are, of course, premiums for your gift. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Free Speech TV window cling, or the I'm Voting Are You car magnet. With a $50 gift, there is the Free Speech TV keychain and the window cling, or the Free Speech TV fall canvas tote bag, you know, very cool canvas tote bag. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV baseball cap or the Thom Hartmann Program mug. With a $120 gift, there's the Free Speech TV t-shirt or the Hidden History of Democracy, signed by the author, or Think Like a Detective, a kid's guide to critical thinking, or the book Rising Up to Power in Narrative in Pursuing Racial Justice by Sonali. With a $200 gift, there is the Free Speech TV hoodie, this very cool hoodie. With a $240 gift, there's our virtual meet and greet. And with a $1,000 gift, you have your choice of getting all 9 books in the Hidden History series, autographed by the author, or coming to Portland and seeing us if and when we ever open the doors again. Whatever it is, please call now. We need your help. Free Speech TV needs you now. Thank you. Did you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at thom.tv, THOM.tv. Check it out. Hey, welcome back. As we're watching the United States House of Representatives, the venerable institution, melt down. I mean, yesterday we had the Jim Jordan clown show, and today it's the Kevin McCarthy clown show. It's just tragic that Vladimir Putin has this much influence over the Republican Party. I am convinced that Putin is one of the major driving forces of this. He wants the United States government to stumble. He wants it to be dysfunctional, in part because, you know, we represent democracy, and he hates that, and in part because we're helping fund Ukraine, and, you know, he wants Ukraine. Ukraine is a country the size of Texas. It's got the largest agricultural, the good agricultural earth surface area of any European country. I mean, it's huge. It is the largest country in Europe, too, physically. Like I said, it's the size of Texas. It's huge. And Russia wants it. They want all that grain. They want all that oil. They want all that. There's land for fracking. There's coal. There's all kinds of natural resources. And Russia wants it. And the Republicans in Congress are really happy to give it to them. This is terrible. Anyhow, let's pick up calls here. Rick in Baltimore. Hey, Rick, what's on your mind today?
You were talking about the Dust Bowl days at the beginning of the program.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to I don't know if you saw it or anybody else, but there was a program like last year, I think, called The End Is Nigh, NYE as in Bill Nye.
No, I didn't see it.
Sci-Fi channel. And it talked about scenarios which, you know, could really mess the world up, if not end human life. And one of them, they talked about the Dust Bowl days.
That the Dust Bowl might be coming back?
I'm not. I couldn't tell if they're going to rerun it or if it's on any other platform.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
But it's really interesting. Basically, humans again messed up the Midwest and caused the Dust Bowl.
Yeah. Well, we certainly did. I mean, that was throughout the 1700s and 1800s, well, late 1700s, throughout the 1800s and the early 1900s. We just cut down basically every tree across, from Texas all the way up to South Dakota, or North Dakota, rather.
Another thing it mentioned underneath what is the Midwest is the Ogallala,
Ogallala Aquifer, yeah.
Yeah, it's the largest in the world, and we're taking out more water than can be put in.
That's correct. Yeah, we are draining it. It's going to hit a limit. We have just been living beyond our means for so long, Rick. Absolutely.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And also, you make a comment about a group called Pangea or something.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to tell you I got a T-shirt that says "Reunite Pangea." It's got all the 7 continents together.
Right, Pangea it was the one landmass on Earth before the continents broke up. Before this was, what?
I'm a geologist.
Probably a billion years ago.
I saw that. I'm a geologist. When I saw that, I had to get it.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. Rick, thanks for the call. It's nice to hear from you. Good talking to you. Jade in Lansing, Michigan, my hometown. Hey, Jade, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. I wanted to ask you about some advice concerning around what to do as a young person in terms of work. I had heard about the Climate Corps yesterday when I was doing my job, listening to the news and whatnot, and I signed up for it and waiting to hear back from them.
Cool.
But I've been in the marijuana industry for about 3 years now, and though I see a lot of medical benefits with marijuana, personally for me, I feel like I'm in a point in my life to where I want to find a career that's going to leave an impact that's greater than my own personal benefit or, the rich people that are starting to get involved into the industry. And I just wanted to ask you, what kind of advice would you have for a 29-year-old looking to find out his or her identity? And that's pretty much it.
That's a huge question. And I can only tell you, I can't advise you, but I can tell you from my own experience that, finding a sense of purpose, finding, what, if it is true that we are born with a mission or some purpose, whether it's true or not, living as if it's true, I've found to be really useful. And every business that Louise and I have started, we've started in the context of trying to accomplish something larger for society than ourselves. And you can do that in a lot of different ways. I mean, you know, we did that in the travel business. We did that in the advertising business. We did that in the herbal tea business. We did it starting a child care institution. We did it starting this radio program and my writing work, and my Substack newsletter. So evaluating the skills that you have, the experiences that you have, looking for opportunities to use those in a context that is positive rather than destructive seems to be the key to the whole thing. And for me, it was, as a young person in my 20s, it was developing those skills, learning how to be a better writer. In my case, you know, because I wanted to be one of my goals when I was a kid was to be an author when I grew up. And so to that, you know, taking classes on that. I took classes on public speaking. I took the Dale Carnegie course, which I recommend to everybody. It's just a marvelous program where you learn public speaking, you learn writing, you learn interpersonal skills, you learn business skills. It was a major force in my life. I took that class when I was 21 years old, and I have paid for it for a number of people over the years who were, you know, friends of mine or my kids. It is, so that's a starting point. I don't know, Jade, if that was at all useful, but that's where I would begin. Did it help?
That's exactly what I needed to hear. Thank you, Tom.
Good luck.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Change the world. Thanks, Jade. George in Cripple Creek, Virginia, isn't it, George?
Yeah, right. I'd like to get your opinion on Mr. Itner since he's coming up. You know, Ukraine used British long-range Storm Shadow missiles to destroy a Russian Kilo-class attack sub and a landing ship in dry dock. If they get more of those, they could severely, you know, limit the effectiveness of the Black Sea Fleet. And also, Poland has cut off arms and ammo to Ukraine because they complain that Ukrainian grain is undermining Polish farmers. So I hate to see any cracks in support for, you know, Western support for Ukraine.
Yeah. Well, the big problem in Poland is that Putin has launched just a massive Facebook and social media attack in the Polish language. You know, promoting basically the Trump, you know, the equivalent of Donald Trump in Poland. I mean, the Law and Justice Party that runs Poland is almost there already. It's, you know, Duda, you know, the prime minister, is to the right of most American politicians. But mostly they're obsessed with immigration. But now the pro-Putin, anti-Ukraine memes are just propagating all across the former Eastern Europe, you know. The former Soviet states. This is, and of course here in the United States, the Internet Research Agency, the Russian trolls, have a huge presence now on Twitter and on Facebook. So, was there a question in there, George, or did you just want to bring up the topic?
Yeah, I just want to get, you know, Philip's report on, you know, how effective Ukraine is in using these long-range missiles to attack the Russian Black Sea Fleet.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be a key to an awful lot, and the other key is whether this $24 billion in aid that the Biden administration wants to give Ukraine right now will make it through Congress. I mean, the military appropriations bill the vote failed this morning, that bill had nothing for Ukraine in it, which is one of the reasons why the Democrats voted against it. But you know, whether the Republicans are going to continue to suck up to Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, of course, you know, who, you know, Putin owns, or not, is, I think, going to be one of the really, really big questions, George. I know you and I are both watching this closely.
Good work, and I enjoy listening to your show.
Thank you, George. I appreciate your kind comments, and thanks for listening to us on Sirius XM. It's 44 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls in just a minute. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We'll be right back with more of your calls in just a moment. It's 44 minutes past the hour. And welcome back, Steve in Kissimmee, Florida. Hey, Steve, I don't have listed here how you're listening to the show. You want to let me know?
On the radio.
Oh, okay. Cool.
On the radio.
What?
I got.
Okay.
I've got a couple quick things. Solution for the shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't they just get out and say, well, since the Republican Party is going to shut it down, all the people that voted for Republicans via their voter registration and ID cards and all that don't get Social Security until it opens back up.
Yeah. I wish it was.
No,
I wish it was that
seriously.
easy. I'm with you, Steve. I think it's a brilliant idea.
All I hear is them call it socialism and this and that all the time. And hey, if you don't want it, no problem.
Yeah.
No problem. We'll take that money and help Medicare or do something else with it.
Yep.
Absolutely. I mean, I wish I heard people say something like that. I mean, it's not that hard. And you want to hurt somebody, you hit them in the pocketbook.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Which is what the Republicans are trying to do, but they're trying to do it to 2.1 million federal employees and tens of millions of people on Social Security and Medicare. The 10,000 people a day who become eligible for Social Security and Medicare will not be able to apply because, the workers won't be there to take the applications and process them. Go ahead.
Yes. No, I was going to say another thing, about what's going on with Frank and Trump.
Frank and Trump.
Where's or Trumpenstein, whatever you want to call them. I mean, I could go into better names than that, but anyway, where is George Bush, President George Bush? Where are all these older senior Republicans? How come they're not out there on TV talking, explaining to people what's going on?
That's a damn good question.
Seriously. And even for the old Democrats, where are they at? Obama should be out talking big time right now. Obama should be out talking.
I read this morning that Donald Trump last night, or maybe it was maybe it was yesterday, Truth Socialed or tweeted or whatever, he has his own Nazi-infested social media site, posted something attacking Charles Koch. The story was that Charles Koch has raised $70 million to oppose Trump's presidency or his ascension to the. But I haven't seen anything, indicating that. I mean, if Koch has raised $70 million to stop Trump, where are the TV ads? Where are the Facebook memes? Where is the social media presence? I'm not getting any of it.
Everybody says how they adore Michelle Obama and how a lot of people want her to run for president. Well, why isn't she out talking about this? Why is it? They should be.
The
out
Obamas
here
have been speaking about Trump. They have been doing it on a fairly regular basis. Barack Obama has, on social media and whatnot. But I think that Democrats speaking about Trump is not going to have weight with the Republican Party. But you're absolutely right. If George W. Bush was to come out, if Liz Cheney was to start speaking up, if her father Dick Cheney was to say something, I mean, you've got the
old guard.
There's a few of them who show up on MSNBC, but like David Jolly, former congressman, but they're basically kind of careerists. But the ones who were held in high esteem, who are now retired, or frankly the ones who are still in the Senate, who are just keeping their mouths shut because they're afraid of the base. I mean, this is not a profile in courage. This is not a profile.
How about the old generals, the ones that see what's going on?
There you go.
The ones that were in Trump's office.
I'm with you, Steve. I got to run, but thank you. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. The MAGA Republicans have a plan for America. It involves something called fascism. It's a three-step plan, actually, to take over America and turn us into a fascist state. They're following the example of Vladimir Putin in Russia and Viktor Orban in Hungary. Viktor Orban, who is held up by conservatives as the example of how a country should be run. He came to Texas to give a speech to CPAC and got a standing ovation. So the three steps. Number one, take over the electoral systems and basically rig them, along with massive gerrymandering. Number two, build a fascist base by mobilizing hate against minorities, gender minorities, racial minorities, religious minorities, while merging with one of the large factions of a church and the billionaires in the country. And number 3, seize control of state power and turn the criminal justice system against your enemies. There's an op-ed about the whole thing over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled, Revealed, the MAGA Republicans' 3-Step Plan for Classic Fascism. Check it out. 10 minutes before the hour, picking up your calls here. Brian in Portland. Hey, Brian, what's on your mind today?
Hey, there you are. How you guys doing today?
Good. What's up?
Just wanted to see how far in the sand your guys' heads really are. I heard you say something that you didn't think that the border was wide open.
No, it's not. There are places where people can cross it. A 3-year-old child died this morning trying to cross in the Rio Grande. But by and large, the border has been sealed.
Okay, well, if they would, yeah, I disagree with that. There's lots of media down there, independent media, that's showing it just flooding with people. And
there are a couple of places where people are coming across. You're absolutely right. And it's a challenge. It's a real challenge. And I wish the Republicans would agree to work out some sort of a new immigration bill to fund the Border Patrol. I mean, one of the things that they're proposing to do, that the Republicans are proposing to do right now, is stop all funding for the Border Patrol. If they shut down the government, all the Border Patrol guys are gonna get laid off. How smart is that, Brian?
It doesn't. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you can't.
No, it's not. It's stupidity by the GOP. If they're concerned about people coming across the border illegally, you would think the last thing they would want to do is shut down the government and lay off the Border Patrol. But that's what they're talking about doing. And you would think that if they were genuinely concerned, they just didn't want to turn it into a campaign slogan and something that right-wing media can fulminate about to get the racist base jacked up. If they were serious about doing something,
you said that
they would then engage in reasonable conversations with Democrats about coming up with a serious proposal to fund the border and do something about this, and to update our immigration laws. But the Republicans refuse to do any of that because this is all a stunt on their behalf. You've got over 100 members of Congress who have come out and said in public, the border is wide open. Those quotes get reprinted and literally on brochures that are passed out in Venezuela and Guatemala by coyotes who make $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a person smuggling people into the United States. They're literally quoting Ted Cruz on their literature. That's how bad it is, Brian. You've got the GOP actively promoting people, actively telling people to come to the United States, that the border is wide open. And then when those people come, the GOP goes, they clutch their pearls and go, oh my God, oh my God. And so Democrats say, okay, cool, let's do something about this. Let's hold a hearing. Let's just have a damn hearing about coming up with immigration legislation. And the Republicans say, nope, not going to talk about it. Sorry, we're just not going to talk about it. Brian, good luck with your party. Bill in Clifton, New Jersey. Hey, Bill, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. You know, with the possible new dress code in the Senate, you may get your wish where there'll be people in coveralls wearing patches for who pays them.
Yeah, looking like NASCAR drivers, right?
Right. The Democrats should come out first for causes that they're for like women's rights and things. But anyway, this shutdown is going to degrade our currency again. Because if you'll remember, Fitch downgraded our currency just because to the debt ceiling.
Right, not just our currency, but our treasury bonds. I mean, our credit rating.
Right. They cited also January 6th, because we're an unstable government.
You're right.
And, there should be one number that they come up, because the economy is too difficult to understand. Take unemployment, GDP, everything, and turn it into one number, 1 through 10. Mm-hmm. What level are we? We're at a 9 out of a 10 or whatever it is.
Right. And
people will be able to understand. And they should have something like the debt clock to post all this stuff so people can see the good economy that Biden's trying to,
I think the problem, Bill, and I think the reason why people are still saying that they don't feel like the economy is good is because we're still, we're still being bit by 40 years of Republican neoliberal policies. Reagan and Bush negotiated NAFTA. Bill Clinton signed it, of course, but it was a Republican policy to ship over 40 million factories overseas. No, I'm sorry, 15 million 15 million factories, 40, no, I'm screwing up my numbers here. Anyhow, a whole bunch of factories overseas. It was 40 million jobs, as I recall, and but I'm starting to I'm not certain of those numbers. But anyway, this was a neoliberal Republican policy, and I we're just starting to recover from it. You're seeing the unions coming back. You're seeing people demanding higher wages. The low end of the wage scale is going up faster than the rest. But until we start going back to policies, pre-Reagan policies, when the economy was doing really, really well. The 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, each one of those decades, you saw GDP growth over 3%. We haven't had a single decade where GDP growth was even hit 3% since then. And it's because, these massive tax cuts for billionaires have sucked $50 trillion out of the pockets and homes of average working people and put it in the money bins of the top 1%, which of course was Reagan's goal. I mean, it was the top 1% that brought him into power. You've got the Republicans, 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court legalizing the bribery of politicians. So now, the entire GOP and about a third of the Democratic Party are on the take. And so nothing gets done. And people know it. People know it. Our government has been corrupted by this, by these right-wing billionaires.
Right, but the problem is not enough people know it. You and I know, and a minority of people know the 40 years of financial, terror.
Yeah, Reaganomics.
It's not out there. Just like with the economy, there has to be some way to broadcast and let people know exactly how things are going without it being complicated.
Yeah,
like a one number or something.
Yeah, I like your one number idea. You would want to have something in there that also addresses inequality and the shift. This $51 trillion transfer of wealth from middle-class families in 1980 to the top 1% today. I mean, literally $51 trillion. It's well documented. You can Google it. That's mind-boggling. It's the impoverishment. You can compare those numbers,
Democrats to Republicans, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Bill, thank you for the call. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Phil Itner is going to join us live from Ukraine, from Kyiv, Ukraine. We'll find out what's going on there and the latest in that situation. Also, the Republican Party is very upset with Merrick Garland. I'll tell you about that. And the World Naked Bike Ride right after this.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com. Well, the week is sliding by, and we really need your help here at Free Speech TV, or there at Free Speech TV, I guess. I'm not an employee, but my show is on the network. We're still behind for our pledge drive. you know, behind our goals, and your help is needed. It's needed very much. Today through Friday, we have that $10,000 donor challenge, where this group of frontline funders, some just great people who got together, and well, actually Free Speech TV, I think, pulled them together, and said that if we can bring in 500 new donors or subscribers or sustaining member, whatever you want to call it, if we can bring in 500 new people over the course of this week, by the end of the day Friday, then they will make a $10,000 donation to Free Speech TV. And so, you know, your $25 gift might be the thing that pushes us over the top. So in particular, if you have never donated to Free Speech TV, if you've been one of those people, which is the vast majority, probably well over 95% of all the people who watch this program on this network, who are just thinking, well, somebody else will do it, please consider becoming one of the few and the select, the inside circle. Become part of this great television network by making a contribution by calling 877-378-8669 or going to freespeech.org and making your contribution right now. We really need your help. And this network is nothing to be taken for granted. It is an extraordinary gift to basically, in my mind, to the world. I mean, you know, we don't just talk about America, we talk about democracy worldwide. Maintaining democracy in the United States is critical to democracy worldwide. There is a battle going on right now between democratic forces, the United States, European governments, and you know, Costa Rica and some other good progressive democratic countries, and the autocrats, the Russia, China, Saudi Arabia axis, North Korea, you know, who want top-down government as opposed to bottom-up government. And that war is fought largely in the information space. Putin and China now, there was just a story a couple days ago about how China is pouring millions of dollars into propaganda here in the United States, trying to cause Americans to hate our political system, to not trust our political system. Russia is doing the same thing. You've got a bunch of, you know, essentially cynics and malcontents who are constantly trash-talking our form of government and our politicians, thinking that it's very fashionable. You know, it's just very fashionable to be so down on America. And, you know, I mean, some of these are people that I've known, and it's so saddening and so discouraging to see them adopt, you know, Putin and Xi's worldview that American democracy is failed. I mean, obviously, we've got a lot of problems, but we're not going to solve them by just throwing up our hands. We're not going to solve them by just constantly criticizing. We've got to come up with positive solutions. And there's a lot that we can do in that area. And we talk about that here on this program and on Free Speech TV generally. So let's help keep this network on the air, and let's help expand good quality programming right here on Free Speech TV. The frontline funders who put up that $10,000 gift that will come to Free Speech TV if we can add 500 people this week are Andrew in San Diego, Bill in Boise, Idaho, Brenda in Copperas Cove, Texas, Charlene in Houston, Texas, Carol in Bandon, Oregon, Diane in Avalon, California, Diane in Santa Rosa, California, Joe in Washington, D.C., Mac and Tiana in Cowdrey, Colorado, Mike in Tippecanoe County, Indiana, Reggie in Raleigh, North Carolina, Sam in Desert Hot Spring, California, Steve in McLean, Virginia, Suzanne in Catlett, Virginia, Tracy in Jacksonville, Oregon, and Vivian and Bobby in La Puente, California. And, you know, these people are really helping a lot. And so please pitch in. Just, you know, whether it's $5 a month or whether it's, you know, a $100 gift, whatever it may be, please call now, 877-378-8669. There are, of course, premiums for your gift. With a $20 gift, you have your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Free Speech TV window cling, or the I'm Voting Are You car magnet. With a $50 gift, there is the Free Speech TV keychain and the window cling, or the Free Speech TV fall canvas tote bag, you know, very cool canvas tote bag. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV baseball cap or the Thom Hartmann Program mug. With a $120 gift, there's the Free Speech TV T-shirt, or The Hidden History of Democracy, signed by the author, or Think Like a Detective, a kid's guide to critical thinking, or the book Rising Up to Power in Narrative in Pursuing Racial Justice by Sonali. With a $200 gift, there is the Free Speech TV hoodie, this very cool hoodie. With a $240 gift, there's our virtual meet and greet. And with a $1,000 gift, you have your choice of getting all 9 books in the Hidden History series, autographed by the author, or coming to Portland and seeing us if and when we ever open the doors again. Whatever it is, please call now. We need your help. Free Speech TV needs you now. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome to the second hour of our program. On the line with us is our old buddy Phil Itner, the veteran war correspondent based in Kyiv, Ukraine. He's got a video blog over on YouTube that is really worth subscribing to and following. You just plug in his name. It's 6 letters and first and last name, PhilipIttner, and you can track it down. His Twitter handle is Itner Philip. And Phil, welcome back to the program. I understand you guys got hit by some Russian missile strikes last night.
Early morning. It was not the best way to start your day. Around 5:40 in the morning, the alarms started sounding, and the anti-aircraft, systems started, shooting into the air, which is very disruptive. And so you're woken by first the alarms and then artillery going up into the air. Thankfully, the air defense system in Kyiv is very, very good. And they were able to knock down everything that was coming in. But sadly, even when you destroy these incoming missiles, the debris has to fall somewhere. So there were 2 sections in the center of the city where a debris fell, and there have been injuries. But it's just one of those things, and we have not had an attack like this in quite some time. And it's just always a constant reminder that there are people out there who intend to kill you just because you live where you live.
Yeah, this is Putin's terror campaign, and it's now being supported by a handful of Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives, which is just breathtaking to me.
Sadly.
It really is.
And distressing.
Yeah. So first of all, what kind of news are you getting back? I mean, we're here watching President Zelensky this morning in Congress, hanging out with Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell and a bunch of other senators. He's at the White House right now talking with President Biden, apparently. What is the news that you're hearing there in Kyiv from all this, and what concern is there?
Well, I don't mean to chuckle, but it is kind of one of those weird things where it's, for the first time in a very, very long time, the headlines aren't actually coming out of here in Ukraine, although there's plenty to talk about here, as always. The headlines are really more on the larger regional and global stage, with Zelensky being at the UN General Assembly, with President Biden's speech at the UN General Assembly, which was, of course, well received here in Ukraine. And then President Zelensky's visits today with leaders in Washington. And then I understand there's going to be a Canadian visit. The other major story it's cracking on in this part of the world is, again, not here in Ukraine proper, but over in the other former Soviet Republic of Armenia and Azerbaijan, where a conflict between those two nations over a disputed territory, a mountain territory called Nagorno-Karabakh, has flared up again. Now, this is something that Moscow normally tampers down, but they are a little distracted. So they have not done generally what they do in the past. Moscow has negotiated a settlement between the Azerbaijan side and the Armenian side, with a little bit of a preferential treatment towards Armenia, because Azerbaijan has ties to Turkey and Istanbul. So there's a lot of conflict there, and we don't have time to go into it in depth. But it's interesting to note that this disputed territory rather has once again caused conflict and fighting. But unlike other times in the past, Moscow is no longer able to negotiate there with any efficiency. And I fear that this is not the last we're going to see of issues like this in the former Soviet sphere that Moscow always kind of had a way of controlling. But because the center can no longer hold, that we may see an increase in chaos and disruption and fighting and what have you as things start to we're fragment at the edges.
Yeah, we're seeing a mess like that in Sudan and Darfur. I was 15 miles from the Darfur border a few years back, and the Russians were supporting at that time the Bashir administration, the Sudanese administration that was sending the Janjaweed in, and we were getting the refugees in South Sudan. But yeah, it's a mess. I'm curious about Poland. I've read a number of different things that suggest different dynamics. The one that caught my attention most recently was a piece about how Putin has tripled down on Polish language, social media, Facebook stuff, and other social media in Poland, promoting the idea that Poland should not be supporting Ukraine. And that the Law and Justice Party, this right-wing party that runs Poland, and Mr. Duda, the prime minister, are starting to bow to that pressure. Now, there are probably other explanations for why they've said that they're not going to provide any more weaponry to Ukraine, but what's your sense of what's really going on?
I think there's a lot going on between Poland and Ukraine, and I do expect, or I suspect rather, that Russia has got its information warfare machine up and running. But part of it has to do with apparently food shipments being sent out from Ukraine through Poland, and partly for use for sale in Poland that the Polish authorities are not happy with.
Is this because the Black Sea ports are blocked right now by the Russians?
This is because of the Black Sea port. That's absolutely right. This is because of the Black Sea port. Part of it is also because the Poles. There are sections of Polish society that are starting to think that they need to look at their own defenses and prioritize their own defenses, because if Ukraine is lost, then the next domino will be. Poles, very well aware of Moscow's intent, are starting to say, we really should be pursuing modernizing our own military as opposed to giving everything that we have to the Ukrainians. There's a lot of dispute. There's a lot of issues that are happening here. Not least of which is there's tension between Ukraine and Poland that has existed for centuries. They put it aside after the Russian invasion, and they've been obviously pro-Ukrainian far more than they are. They're very concerned about Moscow, more so I would say than being pro-Ukrainians. And I guess the best way to put that. So there's a partnership that still exists. These rifts are not insurmountable. I've already seen diplomatic efforts, including the Lithuanians. All three of those countries have a very, very old history and a legacy of cooperation and partnership. I don't think this is going to completely between Poland and Ukraine, but it certainly doesn't help.
Yeah, it's a tough one. What's your general sense of how the war is going?
Well, the weather has changed. We're heading into, we probably have another month, give or take, probably a little more, I'm hoping, of good weather for fighting in. But once the rains in the transitional period come, there will be the mud and all the rest of it. The Ukrainian military command says that they are going to continue to fight throughout the winter, but there will be a period where it's just there's too much mud, and the transitional period between seasons that'll make moving armor around very difficult. But the question still remains: how much more territory can the Ukrainians gain before those rains come? And the objective being for the Ukrainians to try and split the land bridge between Russia proper and Crimea, and that will send a message to the Russians that there are very serious stakes on the table here, and it will also starve out, Russian military bases in Crimea itself. Will they make it? That's a very big question, but certainly they're within range of being able to disrupt the land bridge, and that would be a significant victory as well. Yeah. So we'll have to see how the last few weeks of this intense fighting period will go. They are making progress, the Ukrainians. They're making progress around Bakhmut. They're making progress down towards a place called Tokmak, which is a hub, a transport hub. And ultimately, they're still trying to push towards the sea ultimately. But if they can even make it to a city called Melitopol, not that they have to take it, but if they can get there, then they will have, in many ways, effectively cut off that bridge. And that's going to be a real shock to the system for the Russians. And I think that's what the Ukrainians are aiming for.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the status? We learned, and you and I talked about this last week, from Walter Isaacson's new book about Elon Musk, that a year ago, I guess it was, he had cut off Starlink service, the internet service, to the Ukrainian military to prevent them from attacking the Russian fleet in Crimea. What's the status right now? Is Starlink working? I read in one story that there was that some of those Starlink satellites were being sold to the Pentagon or leased to the Pentagon so that Musk wouldn't have his hands on them. I mean, what's the actual situation here?
There hasn't been a major development in that story based on the reporting in Isaacson's book, but Musk is his persona non grata here in many different ways. Yeah. Having said that, as we've discussed in the past, the Starlink system is essential for so many different things, aside from actually conducting active measures like directing drones and stuff like that. It helps in logistics, it helps in communications, command and control. It's been a very important piece of kit. And yes, we do know that the U.S. Department of Defense has taken control, whether it was through leasing or whether it's through eminent domain or whatever they have done. They have taken over the running of the system in many different ways. And what we have heard from Musk's camp is that he's perfectly fine with that, because much of what apparently is difficult for Musk to wrap his head around is that, by involving himself with this, by giving Starlink, there's no way you're not actively involved in the war. Right. You either deny the Ukrainians the service, and that stymies their ability to conduct offensive operations, or you give it to them and they're able to attack the Russians, and who knows how the Russians will respond. And he didn't like being in that position. So now it does look like the DOD has taken over. And I think generally that's a good thing. And most parties here, I think.
Totally get it. Totally get it. Phil Itner, check out his YouTube video blog, Philip Itner, Ittner. Thanks, Phil.
Tom, if I can just quickly, I put out a good one on a mental health hotline. Check it out because they need support.
Okay, great. I will. Thank you very much. And in fact, remind me next week and we'll plug it for you. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Scott in Newport, Oregon. Hey, Scott, what's on your mind today?
Hey, two things. The first one is, how is it that Social Security recipients are excluded if the government shuts down and will receive their checks anyway? I'm 75. Getting money every month is really nice, but it's probably really nice for cops and Border Patrol and military and everybody else, people fighting fire.
Right.
So how is it? Because about 20% of the country is on Social Security. Yeah. And I keep running into people who are right-wingers who seem to think that Social Security just comes from some sort of magic money pit. that, it's great that they're not dependent. And some people even think that that Trump was the one who paid for COVID benefits.
Well, some actually were approved during the Trump administration. But to your question about Social Security, when Social Security was set up in 1935, the program was set up to be self-funding. It is not paid for out of the general fund. And so there is no congressional appropriation for Social Security. Social Security receives money from the FICA tax that is specific and dedicated to Social Security, and it pays its bills out of the fund that it has, which right now has a $2.1 trillion surplus. It pays its bills out of that fund. So Social Security is not affected by a government shutdown in terms of its ability to pay its checks. On the other hand, its workforce, the people who work at Social Security, the people who process applications, the people who deal with fraud complaints, the people who help you out if you're having problems, if you want to go from getting a check in the mail to having direct deposit or whatever, all those people are civil servants, and they will be laid off if the government goes into a shutdown. So the checks will still come, because presumably the Treasury Department is, an essential function, and that's just one of the things they do is they mail out the checks. The checks will still come, but the 10,000 boomers a day who are retiring and going on Social Security will no longer be able to have their applications processed. So did I explain it? Did I answer your question, Steve? Or Scott?
Pretty much.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Can I ask you another question?
Sure.
Okay. I was a former employer for 31 years. Mm-hmm. There is a program called E-Verify.
Yeah.
And it's real simple. You just call them up, and they
plug in a Social Security number, and they tell you if that person is a citizen or not. Yep.
Exactly. Why is that not just mandatory? Because that would clear up a whole lot of problems that people complain about vis-a-vis immigration.
Democrats have been proposing this for years. Republicans refuse to go along with it, and it's the call I had with Brian earlier, the right winger who called in. Republicans love the fact that our immigration system and our employment systems are in chaos. They put them in chaos. They do not want the situation fixed because they find that politically it works to their advantage. But Democrats have been saying for years there have been multiple attempts to use to require E-Verify for all employment all across the United States, or variations on E-Verify. The E-Verify system itself is it can be subject to fraud. People can use phony Social Security numbers. There are ways around that and ways to fix that, but they require funding that the Republicans refuse to go along with. Scott, thanks for the call. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. Right now we have the most extreme Supreme Court since the 1930s. And one of the main reasons is because these justices, A, have lifetime tenure, and B, in the 1990s, after a series of disappointments with William Brennan and Earl Warren and David Souter and a few others that have been nominated by Republicans, these justices tend to become more liberal once they're given lifetime tenure. So now we've got right-wing billionaires throwing gifts at them, emoluments, speaking fees. John Roberts' wife made $10 million, hooking people up with law firms. All the Republicans on the court are in on the grift. And it's really not so much designed to thank them for what they're doing, but to keep them conservative. Because in the past, Republican appointees have turned liberal. They're not going to let that happen. There's a whole rant about this over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out. 24 minutes past the hour, and fascinating story here, reporting in the Guardian today. John Henley. The headline is revealed: 1 in 3 Europeans now vote anti-establishment. And this is 100 political scientists across Europe looked at 31 countries and found that in the 1990s, 12% of Europeans voted for anti-establishment parties, far-right parties, fascist parties. That went to 20% in the early 2000s, and it was 32% last year. 32%, about a third. As one of these political scientists note, this is a guy with the University of Amsterdam, Matthijs Rugen. He says, mainstream parties are losing votes, anti-establishment parties are gaining. It matters because many studies now show that when populists secure power or influence over power, the quality of liberal democracy declines. We're talking about nativist, authoritarian, far-right parties. He adds, for populists, policymaking is bad. That includes a free press is bad, independent courts are bad, protections for minorities are bad. These are essential parts of a liberal democracy. He talks about Viktor Orban in Hungary, Poland's Law and Justice Party, Giorgia Meloni in Italy, the fascist premier of Italy now, or president, the Finns Party and the Sweden Democrats, right? Austria's Freedom Party, Germany's AfD party. It has doubled its prospective vote share to 22%. Marine Le Pen in France. 3 hard-right nativist parties in Greece won parliamentary seats in June's vote. It turns out that there's 2 issues here that are driving this embrace of the far right, and this is happening in the United States as well as in Europe. One is immigration. Brown-skinned people coming into Europe from the Middle East and North Africa, causing just absolute freakouts among the white racists in Europe, number one. And that's probably the largest driver, both there and here, as you can witness from my earlier right-wing caller. The second is the reaction to neoliberalism, the gutting of the American and European middle class by neoliberal policies that cut back on labor unions. Now, that has not been as bad in Europe as it has been here in the United States. Reagan took us from 1/3 of us being unionized to 6% of us being unionized, just destroyed unions in the United States. And now, every single red state in the United States has a right to work for less state where it's almost impossible to start a union or maintain a union. But this is, the whole neoliberal experience has really soured Europeans on, quote, establishment political parties. It's a fascinating dynamic.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And that, frankly, I think is going to get worse before it gets better. I'll pick up your thoughts on all this on the other side of the break.
This.
2 days. That's it. 2 days. Today and tomorrow. This is the end of the pledge drive, nearly. And, we're still a little behind. Really need your help here. 877-378-8669 is the phone number. If you want to support Free Speech TV, become a supporter of our program, of the network in general, be part of what we're doing, become part of a movement, in my opinion, that's actually helping transform America for the better. We're getting some traction here. The call volume is up. The listenership is apparently up. We don't subscribe to Nielsen or anything like that, but every indication I'm seeing is that Free Speech TV is really being successful at getting the word out. And I especially want to thank those of you who have been telling your friends and neighbors and relatives and acquaintances about Free Speech TV and about our program as well. I get notes from people. I see things on Twitter, hey, heard about Free Speech TV, just discovered you on Free Speech TV, et cetera. It's great. And, it's an important stuff. I mean, Free Speech TV is a really important venue that has information you're just not going to find anywhere else. I mean, Big Pharma owns the commercial television networks. You'll never hear them talk about pharmacy benefit managers or how Big Pharma is ripping you off. They just won't talk about it. Just like the oil industry owns them, just like the military industrial complex owns them. So, we need independent voices, and you've got one right here. And it needs your help. Number one, if if we can hit our goal of the $210,000, we will get that additional $10,000 that our frontline funders have put together for us. And number two, well, I guess that's number two is help us out. You know, let's hit our larger goal and fund this network for another quarter. Special thanks to the frontline funders, Andrew in San Diego, California, Ed and Yvonne in Pennsylvania, Bill in Boise, Idaho, Sheila and in Cochise, Arizona, Brenda in Copperas Cove, Texas, Carol in Bandon, Oregon, Charlene in Houston, Texas, Diane in Avalon, California, Diane in Santa Rosa, California, Joe in Washington, D.C., Mac and Tiana in Cowdrey, Colorado, Mike in Tippecanoe County, Indiana, Reggie in Raleigh, North Carolina, Sam in Desert Hot Spring, California, Steve in McLean, Virginia, Suzanne in Catlett, Virginia, Tracy in Jacksonville, Oregon, and Bobby and Vivian in La Puente, California. There are a bunch of premiums with one-time gifts. There's two ways to give. There's the one-time gift where you just call up and say, you know, yes, here, $50 or $100 or $300 or whatever. And then there's the sustaining membership, which is pretty important. It's becoming a more and more important part of Free Speech TV. And that is where people give a regular monthly amount, excuse me, typically a fairly small amount, you know, $5, $10, $15, $25 a month, something like that. And they just, you know, ding your credit card every month, and you can turn it off anytime you want. You can just call them up and say stop, or tell them in advance how many months to do it for. And, you know, it works out really well. And that way they can budget. So with your one-time gifts, with a $20 one-time gift, you can have your choice of the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Free Speech TV window cling, or the I'm Voting Are You car magnet. With a $50 gift, you get the Free Speech TV keychain and the window cling, or a Free Speech TV fall canvas tote bag, which is a really pretty little tote bag here that I really like. This tote bag is just cool. That's with a $50 gift. With the $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV baseball cap or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug. With a $120 gift, there is the Free Speech TV t-shirt or an autographed copy of The Hidden History of American Democracy, my newest book. Just came out. Well, came out a few months ago, but, you know, recently came out. This is, I think, one of the very best. This is one of my favorites. Or you can get Sonali's new book, Rising Up, The Power of Narrative and Pursuing Racial Justice. Or David Pakman's new book, Think Like a Detective, A Kid's Guide to Critical Thinking. Isn't that great? David's writing children's books. That's wonderful. Anyhow, those are all your choice of any one of those three gifts with a $120 gift or donation. With a $200 gift, there is the Free Speech TV hoodie, which is really warm. I mean, winter is coming. It's cold here in Oregon now, and it probably is where you live. And there's the hoodie, Free Speech on the one side, the Future's Inclusive on the other. So that's with the $200 gift. With a $240 gift, you can join our virtual meet and greet where we hang out for an hour, and it's not recorded, and we can use any kind of language we want, and you know, it's very candid. Or with a $1,000 gift, you can come to Portland and visit us, or you can get the entire set of the Hidden History books, all 9 of them, autographed by the author, that would be me, sent to you. Fill a bookshelf with 9 books. Make a great, great holiday gift, too. So that's the bottom line. Those are the gifts. Please call now, 877-378-8669, and help Free Speech TV survive for another 3 months. Thank you. Hey, if you like the rants that I open the show with every day, they're typically published over at HartmanReport.com. Check it out. You know, one of the grand questions that political scientists have been scratching their heads over for years in America is, why do right-wing billionaires fund anti-black history movements? Why are they pouring money into these people? Why are they funding anti-trans movements? I mean, what does this have to do with being a billionaire? Well, it turns out it has a lot to do with it, and here's why. Almost 30 million Americans lack health insurance. 37 million of us live in dire poverty. 1 in 5 of us are illiterate. A quarter of Americans suffer from a diagnosable mental illness and can't get treatment. 316 people are shot every day in America. 44% of us carry student debt. And the billionaires don't want to pay income taxes to deal with any of these problems of society. That's the real issue. If they can get us fighting with each other over black history or over trans people or kids, they win. Then we're not talking about taxing them, raising their taxes to where they should be. There's a whole rant about this over at HartmannReport.com that you can read and see all the stats and all the hot links. Check it out. Oh, welcome back. 35 minutes past the hour, and this is amazing. I just caught this. General Mark Milley, just made chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said if Donald Trump returns to the White House in January 2025, quote, he'll start throwing people in jail, and I'd be on the top of that list. Why? Because Mark Milley refused, as chairman of the Joint Chiefs, when Donald Trump demanded that he go out and send the military out to seize voting machines and stop the election. He refused to do it. He refused to commit war crimes. He refused to have the military ignore war crimes. I just don't understand why all of America's hair isn't on fire. I mean, the danger of to democracy in the United States and around the world is so big right now. All right, let's pick up your calls here. Steve in St. Genevieve, Missouri. Hey, Steve, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, how you doing?
Good. What's up?
Would you agree with me that if we do not pony up this money for Ukraine, that would be a matter of national security for us?
I do. It would empower Russia. It would it would radically increase the probability that within the next few years you're going to see a land war in Europe. Because if Russia successfully takes Ukraine, they've already declared, their Secretary of Defense or their equivalent has already said that next up is Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. They're gonna reclaim their former territory in their mind. So yeah, I would say it's national security.
That being said, the president, the executive branch, federal. Now, is the Mint federal?
Yeah, the U.S. Mint is federal.
Okay, I always thought that the president has the authority without both houses to print money if he needs to in a matter of national security.
Yes and no. The printing of money, paper money, and creation of digital money, which is how most money is created these days, was taken away from the Mint and given to the Federal Reserve in 1913. So the U.S. Mint still mints coins. So if you've got a dollar bill and a quarter in your pocket, they're literally two different kinds of money. The quarter is actual U.S. government currency that's created by the U.S. government, by the U.S. Mint. The dollar is Federal Reserve currency, and it's an IOU from the Federal Reserve Bank. It's not from the U.S. federal government. Although the Federal Reserve is a quasi-federal agency, it's not fully a federal agency. So they're very different, and that's why the modern monetary theory folks are saying that the president could mint $1 trillion coin because Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution gives Congress the power to create the minting of money, and the president can oversee that. The U.S. Mint can oversee that. So they could mint, $1 trillion coin, which would increase the money supply by $1 trillion, then deposit it with the Treasury and use that to pay down the national debt, for example, or for anything else they wanted. You can't do that through the Fed. Although the Fed did create $14 trillion out of thin air in 2008 and 2009 in response to the Bush crash.
Well, now, it wasn't just not too long ago people were calling on to creating some sort of a coin that was really an expensive coin.
That's the $1 trillion platinum coin that I was telling you about.
Right. Okay. If all else fails, I guess he could fall back on that then, possibly.
He could. There is, in fact, President Biden actually spoke to this in a press conference. It seems like it was about a year ago. The last time there was a Republican freak out about the national debt. And what he said was that they were concerned. Some of their lawyers in the White House said that it may not be legal, and it would certainly be challenged. It would be taken to the Supreme Court immediately by Republicans in Congress, and that it would be seen that the basis of their challenge would be that it was a usurpation of the clear authority that only Congress has to raise taxes and appropriate funds to pay for the cost of government.
Well, can the president then, before this $1 trillion coin is minted, put plans together to pay for it without taxes paying for it?
No. The taxing and spending authority rests exclusively with Congress.
So what you're saying is, even going that route with the Mint rather than the Federal Reserve, the Congress still has the ultimate say.
That's correct. The Mint solution had to do with the debt ceiling. In 1914, President Wilson wanted to issue, they were called Liberty bonds to pay for World War I. He didn't want to just run the government into debt by issuing normal treasuries. And he wanted to sell those bonds to average Americans. And the Congress, at that time, it was Republicans again. They didn't want to enter World War I. They may, well, in retrospect, they weren't right. They were not right. We really needed to defeat Germany in World War I. But in any case, so Congress passed this bill. It was a piece of legislation called the Liberty Bond Act in 1914, or 1915, whatever the year was. And what it said was that that there was a maximum amount of debt that could be created by the issuing of Treasury bills by the Treasury Department. And that debt ceiling then kind of went moribund. I mean, it was just completely ignored from the 1920s all the way, and every year Congress would just automatically raise the debt ceiling when they did their annual appropriations. That was ignored right up until the late 1980s, the 1990s. And then when Newt Gingrich came into Congress, and I think it was the election in '96, he came in the '97, the Congress of 1997. He found this old law and said, wait a minute, there's a debt ceiling. We can use this to beat up Bill Clinton. And so they shut down the government over the debt ceiling, saying that Congress can't appropriate any more money, Congress can't spend any more money because, we've hit the debt ceiling. And so the modern monetary theory people said, if you want to get around the debt ceiling, you can reduce the national debt by $1 trillion simply by minting that coin and depositing it with the Treasury Department. And so it's a way around the whole debt ceiling song and dance that Republicans are doing, which is just bad faith politics anyway. What I would say to end this conversation is, we progressive Democrats, if this does happen and there is a shutdown, we need to let the American people know who really owns this shutdown and really hammer it. Yeah, I think people are figuring it out. I mean, it's taken 3 Democratic administrations having shutdowns done by Republicans in the House of Representatives for people to finally figure out that this is just a political stunt intended to damage the economy so that people will blame the guy in the White House. First it was Clinton, then it was Obama, now it's Biden. But I think people are figuring it out, Steve. I really do. But you're absolutely right. Thank you for the call. Mayor in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Hey, Mayor, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom.
Yeah.
You've heard about the Ukrainian, sorry, I'm huffing and puffing because I'm doing stuff. The Ukrainian victory, the naval victory in Sebastopol. You've heard about that, right?
Yeah. Well, what do you mean where they sank the ship, the Moskova?
Yes.
This is like a year ago? Or are you talking about the more recent one, last month?
No, I think it was just a couple of days ago, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe I haven't heard of it. I know that they have. It was a week or two ago that they attacked and crippled. They didn't sink, but they crippled one of the submarines and one of the big ships.
Right. That's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. The news, the regular news, the mainstream media has not mentioned this at all. There are a bunch of YouTubers. I mean, I used to keep up with the war from Times Radio, but They started out with showing footage of what was actually going on. Mm-hmm. They've kind of fallen back into just retired people from the War Department talking strategy and tactics, and so not so interesting.
So it's like football
and
now.
Now
it's like with color
there are a bunch of
commentators.
YouTubers. But here's something bright on the horizon. There are some YouTubers from Ukraine who are putting out reports from Ukraine, and I don't know, most people wouldn't be under the impression that the counteroffensive is actually going pretty well. Mm-hmm. It is. And if you listen to the gains that they're making, they're doing sort of a war of attrition with the, I wanted to say Soviets.
With the Russians, yeah. Are they doing these in English language?
Yeah.
That's great.
The translation can sometimes be a little cute because I think they might be using AI to translate. Right. And then you hit an idiom like the Ukrainian army told the Russians that in order to surrender, they should display forks of candy. And I'm like, what? And I think that means spread out all of your rations and your weapons, put everything out, like, so they can see that you are surrendering. Uh-huh. Every now and then you'll hit a little idiom like that makes you go, what?
Yeah, I get it.
But definitely, I would start looking into, one of them is PSST Media. Another one is Delicious Recipes from my mom, from my mother, I think it is. Just scroll around. You will find some of them, and the reports are actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'll look for them. That's Mayor, thank you. Thanks for the tip. That's
right.
Good stuff. Yeah, good talking to you too. It's 46 minutes past the hour. Taking your calls here. I'll be right back with more of your calls in just a moment. Stay tuned. It's the Thom Hartmann Program, the place where despair is not an option.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Helping you win the water cooler wars. I'll be right back with your calls. And welcome back. Dave in Federal Way, Washington. Hey, Dave, you wanted to talk about Nagorno-Karabakh?
Yeah, it's something Phil Itner said. Look, Tom, just real quick, 1st Brigade Combat Team of the 101st is in Armenia right now. Armenia is a very important part of the Collective Security Treaty Organization.
Wait a minute, the U.S. U.S. forces in Armenia?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes, they are, and this has really put a burr under the saddle of those of the Kremlin, right? They're very upset about this, and their buddy over here, Kremlin buddy, what's his name, down in Alabama?
Tommy Tuberville?
You know him, Tommy Tuberville. This is a real-world example of his hijinks putting Americans in peril. Look, the 1st Brigade Combat Team does not have the ability to face an adversary as complex as Russia, okay? The Russians could set up the Azeris with lethal means to kill Americans. I mean, I'm not saying that will happen. All I'm saying is the real-world hijinks that Tuberville's doing is hard to quantify, except here's an example.
Yeah.
They're in Armenia right now, and they're in peril.
Now, Dave, my understanding is that this conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, is basically an ethnic conflict as much as anything else, that it goes back centuries, that Nagorno-Karabakh is basically border territory in the mountains. Is my understanding of that accurate?
You're right, and then there's some Persians there, too. But anyway, Tom, you got these tankies that call you up, right? And they're Russia. We antagonized Russia, right? Look, This is a perfect example of where it's not true. I saw a huge billboard by Armenians during the last election that was against Trump. I said, why would Armenians, they're all Christian-y and stuff, why would they possibly be against Trump?
And the Azerbaijanis are Muslims, aren't they?
Well, it's all mixed, Tom,
Okay.
is my point. And the reason why we're against Trump is because Russia was using armed Syrian mercenaries in Armenia. And here's the deal. This is the 21st century, Tom. The tankies are wrong. You do not depopulate to get your empire back. It's not necessary. It will not do.
Dave, your phone is breaking up. It sounds like maybe you're driving, and maybe you just drove through a bad cell area. You want to try that again?
Yeah, what I'm saying is...
Oh, we lost Dave again. Yeah, this is a. I'll speak for a minute, and we'll see if you come back, Dave. But this is a serious conflict, and it's the BBC has been doing some great reporting on it. It was the headline last night. I listened to the BBC daily podcast to put myself to sleep every night. It turns off the chatter in your brain when you pay attention to something else, right? And the podcast works really well for that. And they did a deep dive into this conflict, and I don't think it has the potential to extend beyond that region, but I'm no expert on it. And if anybody really knows more about that conflict in that region, feel free to call in and inform us all. It's 10 minutes before the hour. We'll be back with more of your calls on the other side of this break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Help support progressive radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting Progressive Talk Radio, and tag you're it. By the way, I had a crazy alert for you earlier, and I somehow spaced it. So here it is. Republicans, this is this brilliant Republican legislator, Tom Tiffany of Wisconsin, Congressman Tom Tiffany. He asked Merrick Garland a really hard-hitting question yesterday. He said, do you support more crime? For the record, the Attorney General said no. Then he said that he was really concerned about something else. He said there is a world naked bike ride in Madison, Wisconsin, and went on to say that he had sent a letter to the Department of Justice 2 months ago concerning reports that young people might be naked bike riding along with the adults. Oh, my God. And he said, do you think there's a problem? Why didn't you answer our letter 2 months ago? And Merrick Garland says, I'm sorry, I'll have to ask the Office of Legislative Affairs to get back with you about this. Yeah, right. Naked bike ride. That's something you really need to know about from the Attorney General of the United States. All right, back to your calls. Marilyn in Edmond, Washington. Hey, Marilyn, what's up?
I just wanted to let you know about Move On has a banned bookmobile, and they're buying up the banned books and then taking them out and passing them out free at places where DeSantis is and some of the other Republicans.
Oh, isn't that great?
Sent out a book. Yeah, I think it's wonderful. And they've sent me a little bookmark that said, a banned book is a book worth reading.
There you go.
And I'm going to take that down to the library. And they're also supporting the librarians.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that they're asking for money to buy more banned books so that they can pass them out free.
Oh, that's marvelous. Good on MoveOn.org. The latest outrage was a teacher got fired, and I believe it was in Idaho. Might have been Oklahoma, but I think it was in Idaho this week because she recommended to her class that they read the Diary of Anne Frank.
Oh, my.
I mean, it's like, how dare a teacher teach children about the Nazis, and what they did.
Mm-hmm.
It's just incredible. Marlon, thanks for that information. That's great. Brian in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Hey, Brian, thanks for listening to KTRC. What's up?
Hey, good morning. I've heard you say that you're a fan of Fareed Zakaria on CNN, and I am too. I think he has a lot of intelligent people on his show.
I don't agree with everything he says. I'm not a fan of his neoliberalism, but beyond that, yeah.
Well, over his past couple episodes over the last month, he's made a editorial or stated opinion on immigration and how if progressives don't modify their position and get a handle on it, it's going to be rocket fuel for the American right.
I think he's right in that.
And he is. And I wish progressives would take a more holistic economic perspective on immigration. For example, we have a housing shortage. These millions of immigrants need to live somewhere. Where are they going to live? Nobody talks about it. I think it's possible to have too much immigration, because if we have too much immigration, it has a negative effect on the labor market, and it helps to hold wages low. You know, high levels of immigration and illegal immigration benefits the wealthy because they get a servant class that works for very little money.
That's right.
It hurts the impoverished Americans that grew up in this country. They get hurt the most by illegal immigration and high levels of legal immigration. And all we hear out of leading Democrats is the humanitarian argument. We're a nation of immigrants. Nancy Pelosi says we're a welcoming
I get what you're saying, Brian, but let me just lay down a couple of simple realities around this. One is that we have such a tight labor market right now. And, you know, there's a lot of speculation about why that may be. I think 11% of people who get COVID end up with long COVID and have to drop out of the labor market. We had 1 million Americans die from COVID. But anyhow, we've got this really tight labor market right now. We're absorbing about 1 million immigrants a year, which is what America has been historically absorbing all the way back to the 1930s, the 1920s. It's been, around 1 million a year. It obviously varied a lot, 30 or more years ago, but that's been the general trend. And that doesn't seem to have any impact on our labor markets. But you are right that in those red states that have essentially, that have passed right to work for less laws and thus essentially banned unions, that a large immigrant presence can drive down wages. Democrats have tried to address this, I spoke earlier about E-Verify. Republicans refuse to have anything to do with the conversation because they're demagoguing the issue, basically. But yeah, I think that Democrats need to get a lot smarter around this issue. I had this conversation with Ro Khanna on the air about a year ago. That we don't have an illegal immigrant problem. We have an illegal employer problem. And employers willing to hire people who are here illegally are a giant magnet for people to come into this country, and it's wrong. President Biden just legalized about 500,000 Venezuelans who are already in the country, gave them work permits, essentially. That's not enough to really have an impact on the labor market unless it's highly regionalized, and it probably won't be. But, we need a holistic response to this. You're right. Brian, thank you.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
In addition to bringing you the Thom Hartmann Program here on Free Speech TV and Video Media Online, we also have a whole set of ways you can interact with us and tools you can use to spread the word about the importance of democracy and the threats to it in our republic. First, there's your daily homework. Sue Nethercutt puts together a daily email newsletter that has a link to every story I discuss on the air, so you can find my sources and you can share them with your friends. It's free and you can sign up at thomhartmann.com. Second, I publish my daily take every day over at the hartmannreport.com website. That's also free if you want the daily 5 days a week rant in your inbox. No ads either. Third, we have the podcasts. There's the free 1-hour version of our daily show that's advertising supported. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts normally. And then there's also the podcast of the entire 3-hour show with no advertisements, and that's available by subscription over at thomhartmann.com. So check them all out at thomhartmann.com and hartmannreport.com.
We say fight back!
2 days. That's it. 2 days. Today and tomorrow. This is the end of the pledge drive, nearly. And, you know, we're still a little behind. Really need your help here. 877-378-8669 is the phone number. If you want to support Free Speech TV, become a supporter of our program, of the network in general, be part of what we're doing, become part of a movement, in my opinion, that's actually helping transform America for the better. We're getting some traction here. The call volume is up. The listenership is apparently up. We don't subscribe to Nielsen or anything like that, but every indication I'm seeing is that Free Speech TV is really being successful at getting the word out. And, I especially want to thank those of you who have been telling your friends and neighbors and relatives and acquaintances about Free Speech TV and about our program as well. I get notes from people. I see things on Twitter, hey, heard about Free Speech TV, just discovered you on Free Speech TV, et cetera. It's great. And, it's an important stuff. I mean, Free Speech TV is a really important venue that has information you're just not going to find anywhere else. I mean, Big Pharma owns the commercial television networks. You'll never hear them talk about pharmacy benefit managers or how Big Pharma is ripping you off. They just won't talk about it. Just like the oil industry owns them, just like the military industrial complex owns them. So, we need independent voices, and you've got one right here. And it needs your help. Number one, if we can hit our goal of the $210,000, we will get that additional $10,000 that our frontline funders have put together for us. And number two, I guess that's number two is help us out. Let's hit our larger goal and fund this network for another quarter. Special thanks to the frontline funders, Andrew in San Diego, California, Ed and Yvonne in Pennsylvania, Bill in Boise, Idaho, Sheila in Cochise, Arizona, Brenda in Coppers Cove, Texas, Carol in Bandon, Oregon, Charlene in Houston, Texas, Diane in Avalon, California, Diane in Santa Rosa, California, Joe in Washington, D.C., Mac and Tiana in Cowdrey, Colorado, Mike in Tippecanoe County, Indiana, Reggie in Raleigh, North Carolina, Sam in Desert Hot Spring, California, Steve in McLean, Virginia, Suzanne in Catlett, Virginia, Tracy in Jacksonville, Oregon, and Bobby and Vivian in La Puente, California. There are a bunch of premiums with one-time gifts. There's two ways to give. There's the one-time gift where you just call up and say, yes, here, $50 or $100 or $300 or whatever. And then there's the sustaining membership, which is pretty important. It's becoming a more and more important part of Free Speech TV. And that is where people give a regular monthly amount, typically a fairly small amount, $5, $10, $15, $25 a month, something like that. And they just, ding your credit card every month, and you can turn it off anytime you want. You can just call them up and say stop, or tell them in advance how many months to do it for. And, it works out really well. And that way they can budget. So with your one-time gifts, with a $20 one-time gift, you can have your choice of the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Free Speech TV window cling, or the I'm Voting Are You car magnet. With a $50 gift, you get the Free Speech TV keychain and the window cling, or a Free Speech TV fall canvas tote bag, which is a really pretty little tote bag here that I really like. This tote bag is just cool. That's with a $50 gift. With the $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV baseball cap or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug. With a $120 gift, there is the Free Speech TV t-shirt or an autographed copy of The Hidden History of American Democracy, my newest book. Just came out. Well, came out a few months ago, but recently came out. This is, I think, one of the very best. This is one of my favorites. Or you can get Sonali's new book, Rising Up, The Power of Narrative and Pursuing Racial Justice. Or David Pakman's new book, Think Like a Detective, A Kid's Guide to Critical Thinking. Isn't that great? David's writing children's books. That's wonderful. Anyhow, those are all your choice of any one of those three gifts with a $120 gift or donation. With a $200 gift, There is the Free Speech TV hoodie, which is really warm. I mean, winter is coming. It's cold here in Oregon now, and it probably is where you live. And there's the hoodie. Free speech on the one side, the future's inclusive on the other. So that's with the $200 gift. With a $240 gift, you can join our virtual meet and greet where we hang out for an hour, and it's not recorded, and we can use any kind of language we want, and you know, it's very candid. Or with a $1,000 gift, you can come to Portland and visit us, or you can get the entire set of the Hidden History books, all 9 of them, autographed by the author, that would be me, sent to you. Fill a bookshelf with 9 books. Make a great, great holiday gift, too. So that's the bottom line. Those are the gifts. Please call now, 877-378-8669, and help Free Speech TV survive for another 3 months. Thank you. Hey, welcome back to the third hour of our
the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, welcome back to the third hour of our program. Yesterday, I told you about how climate change is causing insurance companies to leave Florida and leave Texas and leave California, et cetera, and how that might be impacting, generally people's lives. You know, those insurance companies that aren't leaving are jacking up their prices, in some cases doubling, tripling, quadrupling them. And increasingly, states are offering these kind of insurance policy of last resort policies where, people are getting their insurance from the state. And the problem is that those policies are very expensive, too. Now, the big impact that this has, in addition to just, squeezing people, I saw a tweet this morning that had a picture of a house, and it said, in 1980, this house was $110,000. Today, this house is $500,000. In 1980, people were making $7.50 an hour today, or $25 an hour today. They're making $7.25 an hour, or something like that. It said a teacher made, I forget the amount, but the amount that the teacher made has gone up by about 10%, whereas the price of the house is more than quadrupled in the 40 years since then. So this is a problem, affordability, but there's this larger problem of just the value of the house, since for the majority, more than 80% of middle-class people, the largest store of wealth that they own is their home. And when the value of their home goes down, their credit rating goes down, their ability to function goes down, their ability to borrow against their home goes down, the ability to sell it and stash some money in a retirement account goes down. All those, as the value of homes decrease, everything hurts. And now we're getting this report. This is from the First Street Foundation. It's a housing associated kind of think tank or group. They're arguing that 39 million U.S. properties are currently overvalued because the marketplace is just beginning to reckon with the damage that climate change is doing to housing. They say that in most cases, the result of flooding, hurricanes, and wildfires, quote, has yet to be reflected in the insurance premiums, end quote. 60% are coastal properties at risk from hurricanes. That would be probably the entire Gulf Coast and the large chunk of the East Coast. And now apparently, Southern California, from what we just saw recently. 30% are vulnerable to flooding. Now that's, that can happen pretty much anywhere. I mean, look at what just happened in Libya with a massive thunderstorm that just literally washed an entire town into the sea. Although we're seeing this it really hitting the Midwest hard. The Tennessee, Kentucky, the northern Arkansas, northern Mississippi, all the way across, from the Midwest across. And 10% are in wildfire zones. And that's principally the West Coast, although some of it is in the Rocky Mountains. And now we're starting to see wildfire zones. I mean, you had wildfires in New Jersey, recently. So, but they're saying that these state-sponsored last resort policies, since 2016, policies under this program have risen by 168%. That's the number of policies to insure 1.3 million people. The average premium has gone up 61%, from around $2,000 to around $3,000 a year, or $3,300 a year. They note that the previous governor of Florida, that would be current U.S. Senator Rick Scott, had banned the state in any state agency documents from referencing the words climate change. Rick Scott, in deference to the right-wing billionaires, the fossil fuel billionaires who helped fund his campaigns, Rick Scott had literally executive order out of Florida that the state could not use the word climate change under any circumstances, anywhere. Ron DeSantis came in and he banned Florida cities and from adopting 100% clean energy goals on the grounds that it discriminates against fossil fuels. Let that sink in for a minute. I mean, this idiocy is not anywhere near a strong enough word to describe this. Allstate, American Family, Nationwide, Erie Insurance Group, and Berkshire Hathaway have stopped issuing policies in many of these risk areas. And the companies that are left are raising both premiums and deductibles. And the net effect of this is that an estimated 39 million homes in America right this moment are overvalued. In other words, if you were to buy a home in Florida, for example, which is, in one of these sacrifice zones to climate change, or in southern Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, along the Gulf Coast of Texas, if you were to buy a home in any of those areas right now, and say you pay, $300,000 for the house, what you're going to discover is a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, as the insurance companies start underwriting, reevaluating the policies and the risks associated with these policies, that the insurance premiums are going to go up, and in many cases might not even be available to people. And the result of that will be that the housing price, the value of the housing, is going to go down. So your $300,000 house, 5 years down the road, when you expect the value has gone up and, hey, this adds to my retirement and all that kind of thing, the $300,000 house is now a $250,000 house or a $200,000 house. It's amazing. And I've got a geeky science for you. This is fascinating. This is out of Germany. This is a fascinating study. A team of international researchers. They looked at 460,902 participants and studied 443 samples among that group of 460,000 people at different stages in their lives of self-reported subjective measures of happiness. And they looked at several different things: general life satisfaction, optimism. They looked at this during childhood, young adulthood, old age, older adulthood. And life satisfaction, positive emotional states, and negative emotional states were the primary indicators that they were looking at. This is out of the German Sport University in Cologne, Germany, and Ruhr University in Bochum. Professor Suzanne Brucker ran the investigation. And this is, from the study. Overall, children saw their life satisfaction drop off during adolescence, declining from age 9 to age 16. So, and, I can't speak for you, but I can tell you that I remember, hitting puberty and going through that, 10 to 16-year-old. That was a rough time. That was a real rough time. I had so much conflict with my parents and school and everything else. I was just wow. And life satisfaction just crashes during that time. But then it starts increasing at 16 or 17, and steadily but slightly increases consistently all the way to the age 70. Age 70 is peak happiness, according to this study. And then it drops off again steadily down to age 96, which was the cutoff for the study. And they note that the drop-off after age 70 doesn't have to do with emotional states as much as it does have to do with emotional responses to physical states. In other words, physical deterioration associated with old age causes people to report that they're not as happy as they were because, hey, they can't get around or they hurt. The simple fact of the matter is that nobody warned us about is that old age hurts. or it can. It generally does. So anyway, I thought that was absolutely fascinating. So let's pick up some of your phone calls here in the third hour. Kurt in Akron, Ohio. Hey, Kurt, what's on your mind today?
Oh, hi. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate you taking the call.
Sure.
One more thing fathers don't ever warn sons about is menopause. I think that's something that they think that the sons need to figure out on their own.
Apparently.
Yeah, but hey, you were talking about the government shutdowns earlier, and you made reference that Gingrich came in 96 and the government shutdown was 97.
That was my recollection.
He came in 94, and then we had the 95 government shutdown, which brought us Monica Lewinsky. And if you remember, they came up with an agreement around Christmas time, because that happened on November 15th when the government shutdown happened in 95.
Right.
And probably about a week or so before Christmas time, if I'm remembering correctly, we had like a 3-week period where we had money coming in where they didn't have the government shutdown. And then Gingrich and Dole were doing their whole, well, we need to defund Medicare and Social Security and Medicaid and all that stuff. And Clinton said, I can't go along with it. I don't believe in it. If it costs me re-election, then so be it. So shortly after the new year in 96, because I remember because we had to do the whole college thing, and that affected student loans for people too, which people aren't talking about right now that I have heard. We had a government shutdown in January of 96. But if you remember, Bob Dole was running for president at that time, and he was a Senate Majority Leader.
Right.
He wanted that government shutdown cured really fast because he needed to get out on that campaign trail. So he had an ulterior motive to cooperate with Bill Clinton.
Yeah. Well, thank you for correcting me, Kurt, and setting the record straight. It's always dangerous when I'm just relying on pure memory as opposed to having done some research or having an article in front of me, and that's why I tossed in that caveat. If my memory serves me right. So I'm glad that you had the details. Thank you for that.
But no, I very much remember that because, like I said, I remember kids at the time going through the whole college thing and having to go. Their student loans were suspended for a little while, and they couldn't get their financing for that. So that was a big deal at that time.
Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, I remember it happening. It didn't affect me personally, so my memory was not as specific as yours. But thank you.
And it brought us Monica, right?
There you go. Yes, of course. Kurt, thanks a lot for the call. It's 17 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Defending America from the weapons of mass deception. I'll be back with your calls in just a moment. And welcome back. Rich in Indianapolis. Hey, Rich, what's on your mind today?
I was listening to the news, and they reported about California's McCarthy blocking the. Help me out with this. He and his far right caucus blocked the defense budget
this morning.
Reissued.
Yeah, this morning, and actually McCarthy wanted it to pass. But he had a bunch of Republicans who said, nope.
Well, I got an opinion that comes from something that somebody said about Tuberville and him stopping all of those appointments on the Pentagon's stand on reproductive rights.
Right.
And him stopping all those people being put into those positions. As long as stuff is open, as long as things have been stopped and not fulfilled, just like we had the opportunity of 3 justices on SCOTUS that were suddenly slotted by Mr. Trump.
Right.
I'm of the opinion, based on a theory, I'm absolutely willing to embrace this, that there is this effort to keep military assignments and people structure open, that it may be populated by whatever comes in if it's Trump.
That's my theory too, Rich. I laid that out in an op-ed about I don't know 3 weeks ago or so that Tommy Tuberville that it was the military that prevented Trump from ultimately doing his coup. And in fact, specifically Mark Milley, which is why Mark Milley says he will be in jail the first day that Donald Trump comes back into office. I think that Tuberville is trying to keep these top positions in the military open so that he can replace those people who refuse to do what Trump wanted with people who will do what Trump wants when Trump comes back into office, on the assumption that Trump is going to win the election.
Were you the conversation I heard that was describing some details about Mike Flynn and his Army of God?
I've talked about it before, but it's not my hobby horse. I mean, there's a couple of people out there who are just all over Mike Flynn. Radical Reports on Substack, for example.
The idea that these people are so authoritarian and just fascistic. That's you can only look at them and see fascist.
Yeah.
And they are and please remember Betsy DeVos's brother, Prince.
Yeah.
That guy. Whoa. You know what was it? Blackwater is the former name of his militarista contractor unit.
Force,
Okay, well, he's Prigozhin, right? I mean,
in a way, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And George W. Bush made good use of it and helped, the billionaire family become the multi-billionaire family because he wanted to keep the troop numbers down in Iraq and Afghanistan with his illegal wars, and so and he paid for this stuff off the books. And that's why Obama had to put $1 trillion on the books.
Yeah, warning.
Yeah, exactly, Will Robinson. Yeah, I'm with you, Rich. I'm with you. It's not good. It's definitely not good. Rich, thank you for the call. We'll be back. It's 21 minutes past the hour. Stay with us. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Between 40 years of Ronald Reagan's neoliberalism destroying the American middle class and all the just horrors of January 6th and the Trump presidency, America's waking up, and that's a really good thing. There's actually, some books coming out about this. Mine, The Hidden History of Democracy. Neil Howe's The Fourth Turning is here. And it looks like a moment of American renaissance is upon us, if our media doesn't screw it up, which raises the question, can we have democracy and Fox News? Can the two coexist? Like, when Fox News runs chyrons saying that essentially Joe Biden is a wannabe dictator who's throwing Trump in jail because he's his political opponent. There's a whole rant about this and an in-depth analysis of what can we do with regard to repairing our media here in the United States over at HartmannReport.com. I think you'll find it interesting. Check it out. And welcome back. Picking up your calls here, 23 minutes past the hour. What's on your mind? Tony in Long Island, New York. Hey, Tony, what's up?
Hey, how you doing, Tom?
Good.
This afternoon, pardon me. Listen, I was curious. There's a big migrant issue that's going on with the transportation. I've been going over into New York and all the liberal states, per se.
Right.
And now, right now, Mayor Adams is complaining that it's going to cost him roughly $14 billion over the course of 3 years. House them.
Yep.
I was just curious about two things. Number one, is it a federal crime to transport these migrants who might not have been processed through the system across state lines and then just deposit them in another state?
There is an argument being made by a sheriff in Arizona and by Gavin Newsom in California that it is a form of kidnapping or fraud, and there are lawsuits against Greg Abbott in Texas and Ron DeSantis in Florida around that, but they're going to take a while to work their way through the courts. To the best of my knowledge, there's no federal law that would outlaw this outside of the kidnapping laws.
Oh, okay. So there isn't. And I guess my last question, this is totally off the hook, considering how Bill Maher was the last holdout with the current strike and decided finally not to air his show.
Right.
And considering how off the hook he's been, and I saw you once on his show a long time ago, would you ever consider going back on Bill Maher with his rhetoric now that he sounds so much to the right?
Yeah, I've been on Bill's show 3 or 4 times. I would be astonished if he had any interest in having me back on. The last time I saw him was at his Christmas party a year ago, maybe, no, it was the year before COVID, actually. And he was not particularly friendly, shall we say. So, so no, I don't think that's going to happen. By the way, just in defense of Bill Maher, he stopped his program when the writer's strike started. And he was going to bring it back a couple of weeks ago. He was talking about bringing it back. He announced that he was going to bring it back, and he got so much blowback that he said, okay, I won't. We're not going to do that. And the same thing happened with another person who's got a talk show. I'm forgetting her name.
Drew Barrymore, yeah.
Yeah, Drew Barrymore, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, Drew Barrymore, yeah.
But Bill actually shut down his show when the strike happened. So, it wasn't that he was a holdout. It was that he was thinking of going back. And, the people...
Yeah, he had already had a scheduled date to go back, and everybody, there was a huge blowback for it. I mean, I've seen some of his rants on his podcast and whatnot, and the guy is just like, I know a lot of people that are to the left, and some people that used to watch his show, and I'm like, I think it's probably the last time I'm ever going to see this guy. I mean, last time I really think he was truly funny was maybe 10 years ago. But,
I think Bill Maher is an incredibly talented guy. He's a very smart guy. I can tell you from knowing him. I mean, I don't know him well, but from having been on his show 3 or 4 times and met him a few times in person, he's wicked smart, and he's been a great advocate for a lot of positive things for gay rights, for pot. He's a big pothead apparently. He seems to have been drifting to the right recently and getting more and more kind of bitter, which is just not a good look. Yeah, it's sad. I don't know what's going on with him. I hope he can get his life back together. A lot of it I think tracks back to when he fired his executive producer Scott Carter, who's been on this program. Scott was a really good guy and really helped keep that show on track, and he's gone now. Tony, I got to run, but thanks for the call. It's 27 minutes past the hour.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Back with your calls on the other side of this break. Stay with us. It's the Thom Hartmann Program. Talk media for the rest of us.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Our book today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Humane, How the United States Abandoned Peace and Reinvented War by Samuel Moyn. This is from the prologue. The sky 2 days. That's it. 2 days. Today and tomorrow. This is the end of the pledge drive, nearly. And we're still a little behind. Really need your help here. 877-378-8669 is the phone number. If you want to support Free Speech TV, become a supporter of our program, of the network in general, be part of what we're doing, become part of a movement, in my opinion, that's actually helping transform America for the better. We're getting some traction here. The call volume is up. The listenership is apparently up. We don't subscribe to Nielsen or anything like that, but every indication I'm seeing is that Free Speech TV is really being successful at getting the word out. And I especially want to thank those of you who have been telling your friends and neighbors and relatives and acquaintances about Free Speech TV and about our program as well. I get notes from people. I see things on Twitter. Hey, heard about Free Speech TV? Just discovered you on Free Speech TV, etc. It's great. And, it's an important stuff. I mean, Free Speech TV is a really important venue that has information you're just not going to find anywhere else. I mean, the big pharma owns the commercial television networks, you'll never hear them talk about pharmacy benefit managers or how big pharma is ripping you off. They just won't talk about it. You know, just like the oil industry owns them, just like the military industrial complex owns them. So, you know, we need independent voices, and you've got one right here, and it needs your help. Number one, if we can hit our goal of the $210,000, we will get that additional $10,000 that our frontline funders have put together for us. And number two, well, I guess that's number two is help us out. You know, let's hit our larger goal and fund this network for another quarter. Special thanks to the frontline funders, Andrew in San Diego, California, Ed and Yvonne in Pennsylvania, Bill in Boise, Idaho, Sheila and in Cochise, Arizona, Brenda in Copperas Cove, Texas, Carol in Bandon, Oregon, Charlene in Houston, Texas, Diane in Avalon, California, Diane in Santa Rosa, California, Joe in Washington, D.C., Mac and Tiana in Cowdrey, Colorado, Mike in Tippecanoe County, Indiana, Reggie in Raleigh, North Carolina, Sam in Desert Hot Spring, California, Steve in McLean, Virginia, Suzanne in Catlett, Virginia, Tracy in Jacksonville, Oregon, and Bobby and Vivian in La Puente, California. There are a bunch of premiums with one-time gifts. There's two ways to give. There's the one-time gift where you just call up and say, you know, yes, here, $50 or $100 or $300 or whatever. And then there's the sustaining membership, which is pretty important. It's becoming a more and more important part of free speech TV. And that is where people give a regular monthly amount, excuse me, typically a fairly small amount, you know, $5, $10, $15, $25 a month, something like that. And they just, you know, ding your credit card every month, and you can turn it off anytime you want. You can just call them up and say stop, or tell them in advance how many months to do it for. And, you know, it works out really well. And that way they can budget. So with your one-time gifts, with a $20 one-time gift, you can have your choice of the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Free Speech TV window cling, or the I'm Voting Are You car magnet. With a $50 gift, you get the Free Speech TV keychain and the window cling, or a Free Speech TV fall canvas tote bag, which is a really pretty little tote bag here that I really like. This tote bag is just cool. That's with a $50 gift. With a $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV baseball cap or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug. With a $120 gift, there is the Free Speech TV t-shirt or an autographed copy of The Hidden History of American Democracy, my newest book. Just came out. Well, came out a few months ago, but, you know, recently came out. This is, I think, one of the very best. This is one of my favorites. Or you can get Sonali's new book, Rising Up, The Power of Narrative and Pursuing Racial Justice. Or David Pakman's new book, Think Like a Detective, A Kid's Guide to Critical Thinking. Isn't that great? David's writing children's books. That's wonderful. Anyhow, those are all your choice of any one of those three gifts with a $120 gift or donation. With a $200 gift, there is the Free Speech TV hoodie, which is really warm. I mean, winter is coming. It's cold here in Oregon now, and it probably is where you live. And there's the hoodie. Free speech on the one side, the future's inclusive on the other. So that's with the $200 gift. With a $240 gift, you can join our virtual meet and greet where we hang out for an hour, and it's not recorded, and we can use any kind of language we want, and you know, it's very candid. Or with a $1,000 gift, you can come to Portland and visit us, or you can get the entire set of the Hidden History books, all 9 of them, autographed by the author. That would be me, sent to you. Fill a bookshelf with 9 books. Make a great, great holiday gift. From international trade policy to immigration policy to housing, we've got all kinds of topics. The wars between Republicans and Democrats, the Republican efforts to induce fascism in the United States. A great selection of opinions will be found over at HartmannReport.com. When I was a little kid, my grandmother had a piano, and I loved to play it. I was incompetent, but I was figuring out all kinds of stuff. And then I kind of got away from it and, went to school and things got busy and just lost track of it. Well, now there's this fascinating new study out of the University of Geneva, Switzerland, that is making me think maybe I should go back and learn the piano. What they found was that they took a group of 132 healthy older adults, retired, 62 to 78 years old. Half of them learned the piano, half of them took music classes without learning the piano. And what they found was that those who learned the piano actually had the strongest increase in their memory, in their mental competence, their mental faculties. Those who took the music classes also did well, but learning the piano was a huge step. So check it out. There's a whole long rant about this over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out. 35 minutes past the hour, picking up your calls here. What's on your mind? Paulette in Hinsdale, Illinois. Hey, Paulette, what's up?
Yeah, hi. Met you a couple times with book signings out our way.
Oh, great.
First of all, I want to thank you from my heart of how much you are appreciated, because we understand how hard you work, how important your work is. Also, for 30 years I was involved with all politics, primarily because of the environment. We, as environmentalists, could see these insurance rates coming a mile away. There's no way these companies are going to keep up with these weather events. Yeah. And this is just the very, very tip of the melting iceberg. We know this. But where did you locate the insurance data on that? I didn't hear that on your program.
The information I was quoting, hang on just a minute, let me find the article here, is from a story that was published on dailycoz.com by Meteor Blades, and they are quoting a report from the First Street Foundation. So if you plug First Street Foundation and home insurance into a search engine, I'm guessing it'll pop right up if you want to get the original source as opposed to the reporting on the original source.
Oh, okay. And what was the gal's name?
The what?
The gal's name that wrote the article?
Meteor Blades. I'm not sure of that person's gender, but I thought it was a woman, but I could be wrong.
Two names, Meteor.
METEORBLADES. Yeah, the headline, you can find it over at dailycoz.com right now.
Right.
It's titled Report, Nearly 40 million U.S. properties are overvalued because of climate-related risks.
Okay, got it. And also, I cannot agree with you more about what Tuberville is doing. They're holding out to hopefully fill those positions with their loyalists. We know this.
Yeah, I believe so.
I feel it in my bones. And I got to say...
This is what Mitch McConnell did with the Merrick Garland seat. I mean, it's not like a new idea.
Yeah. I know. This is their MO. But I also want to say, my husband, when he was in Vietnam, by the way, he died 7 years ago today. When he was in Vietnam, he was one of the few young men that had computer expertise. He was an engineer, and he was on a Air Force owned by the UK, just on an island just south of South Africa. And all they did was monitor for nuclear testing, most primarily with Russia. And till this day, after 7 years, he almost made a career out of the Air Force. In any case, the only time, and I mean the only time, that I am almost glad my husband is not here is to witness what we are doing to our national security. It's frightening.
Yeah, it really is. It really and truly is. And this is why the part two of my conspiracy theory, part one, of course, is Tuberville is holding those positions open so that Trump can fill them with people who will overthrow the government of the United States. Part two is that Trump is doing this at the behest of Vladimir Putin.
Yes.
I really believe that Putin is pulling the strings here. We know, both Eric and Don Jr. have said that the Trump organization basically wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Russian money. That when Trump had 6 bankruptcies in the late 90s, I think it was 96, when his casino went down, what brought him back was Russian money. Billions of dollars in Russian money, oligarchs stashing their money in real estate in the United States. Real estate is the number one thing that is used to launder ill-gotten gains around the world, and U.S. real estate laws are so porous and so essentially non-existent that you can launder illegal money here in the United States through real estate, and Trump has been, in my opinion, at the forefront of this in ways that are just absolutely illegal in other parts of the world. And I think that what you're watching right now is an unholy alliance between Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, a handful of right-wing Republicans in the U.S. House and Senate to take down democracy in the United States and all around the world. That's their goal, to end democracy.
Yeah, and that's why he wanted. Well, they still want Trump back in, just to destroy NATO. We're the NATO leaders.
That's right. We helped create it, and I would add to that, by the way, that I think that Rupert Murdoch just stepped down, or will in November, from leading his empire. I think Murdoch also wants to destroy democracy. Rupert Murdoch was born rich. His father was Sir Murdoch. His mother was Dame Murdoch. They had royal titles. He was born with, a silver spoon in his mouth. His son, Lachlan, who is now going to be running, or has been running, I guess, Fox News for a while, was born a billionaire. These guys have no concept of what it's like to be an average working person. And Murdoch just issued this comment about how the bureaucrats and the elites don't want, and here's a guy who's a billionaire. I mean, and the elites in the media. That's Rupert Murdoch. He's the media elites. They want to make the world. Murdoch, Putin, and Trump want to make the world safe for billionaires. That's, in my opinion, billionaire oligarchs. Yeah. We got American oligarchs. You got Russian oligarchs, and I think that they're in common cause, frankly. Paulette, I got to move on.
Okay. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for the call. Gregory in Ventura, California. Hey, Gregory, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. You're on fire today, and I love it.
Yeah, I drank some coffee.
Here's what's on my mind. Yeah, you have, and especially your opening rant. I'm a longtime liberal. Was a freshman at Berkeley in '64. Graduated. Here's what I don't understand: this term neoliberalism. Mm-hmm. I'm a longtime liberal, and so to me that's liberalism. Yeah. And neo is new.
Right.
Why is it applicable to the right-wing conservatives now?
Because the guys who invented neoliberalism, it's a phrase that was invented by Friedrich von Mises, and the guys who invented it were Europeans, mostly Germans. And the word liberal in every other country in the world, including Australia and Canada, doesn't mean what it means here in the United States. In all those other countries, it means essentially what we would call libertarian, without government regulation. The liberal parties of Europe are the hard right-wing parties. And so when von Mises and Friedman was the only American in the group, and there was a whole bunch of them. I wrote a book about this, The Hidden History of Neoliberalism. When these guys came up with their theory that governments should bow to marketplaces, that billionaires and corporations should run things rather than elected officials, they called it neoliberalism, the new liberalism, because it was based on the old liberalism of Europe, which today is being advanced by people like Marine Le Pen.
So you're saying we kind of, for some reason, took on this German-European interpretation of that word. I was never able, when I was writing The Hidden History of Neoliberalism, I was looking for some source that could explain to me why in America the word liberal means something completely different than it does anywhere else in the world. And I could not find an authoritative source that answered that question. When we started referring to liberals as what you and I consider ourselves to be, as opposed to what, a Brit or a Frenchman would call a liberal. If anybody knows, call in and let us know. I would love to know. But well, thank you for the elucidation. You're welcome. It's kind of mind-boggling for me. I agree. You put it together for me. So okay, good. Thanks a lot, Gregory. Good to hear from you. Michael in Bronx, New York. Hey, Michael, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. First off, as I was on hold, you were wondering about, what's their names? In Texas and Florida, Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott. Right. If there were any federal laws that were being broken. Right. I thought human trafficking was a federal law. It is, and that's a subset of the kidnapping laws. And the question is that actually what they're doing? But that's what Gavin Newsom is alleging that they're doing. And it's what the sheriff, and I believe it's Arizona, might be New Mexico, is alleging that they're doing. But like I said, it hasn't been adjudicated. Right. And one of the reasons why, a couple of reasons why I called in. First off, with this government shutdown looming, I hope people learn a lesson here that at least during this generation, do not vote Republican again. Because every time a Republican gets into power, they're always shutting the government down. You remember Newt Gingrich, and look what Donald Trump did while he was in office. That's why I don't know if you saw the New York Daily News, for the 30 days that the government was shut down, of all times during the holiday season, they painted Trump as the Grinch. Because it's like this Grinch that stole Christmas. And now we're about to go through this stuff again. And speaking of Trump, it's another thing I'm getting really tired of and upset. These right-wingers that want to say, oh, you cannot imprison Trump or incarcerate him because of his celebrity status. What? Let me tell you all something. If they can incarcerate O.J. Simpson for almost 500 days throughout the preliminary hearing, pretrial hearing, and during the trial itself, or the trial of the century, they can sure as hell do the same doggone thing to Trump, whose prosecution, by the way, is more airtight than that of Simpson. What do you think?
I agree with you, Michael. I think he should have been in jail from the get-go. I think he should have been arrested right after January 6th for attempting to overthrow the government of the United States. I thought that Merrick Garland should have arrested him on January 21st when he left the White House. I'm a hardliner on this. I think anybody who tries to overthrow our government needs to go into the slammer. Period. Full stop. Michael, thank you for the call.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit thomhartmann.com for audio and video archive.
It's 46 minutes past the hour. Back with more of your calls in just a moment. Stay with us. And welcome back. And welcome back. Brenda in Petersburg, Virginia. Hey, Brenda, thanks for watching us on Facebook Live. What's up? Brenda? Do we have Brenda's potted up and everything? Okay, I'm not hearing Brenda, so I'm going to put her on hold, and Mark can talk with her. Mildred in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Mildred, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me, Tom?
I can. It's great. Thank you, Mildred. What's on your mind today?
Okay, what's on my mind is Tommy Tuberville.
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware of the fact that on January the 5th of 2021, he was in the Trump International Hotel in the residence along with Michael Flynn, Donald Trump Jr., Peter Navarro, David Bossie, and they were discussing about January the 6th.
Yes, I am not only aware of that, I've written 2 op-eds over at Hartmann Report specifically about that. Yes.
Okay, and what I did was I looked up expulsion in the Senate, and I called up my representative, Stansberry, and my one of my senators, Senator Ray Lujan, and made a point of having a study or review about the expulsion of Tommy Tuberville because he participated in the insurrection.
I agree with your sentiment, Mildred. He has claimed that he wasn't there, but there are multiple people who took pictures of him there and who bragged about hanging out with him in Trump's private quarters there on January 5th, the evening before the insurrection. And it's fairly clear to me that of the people in the United States Senate, that there's 2 people in the United States Senate who really have some explaining to do. Tommy Tuberville is one of them, and the other one is Chuck Grassley, because Chuck Grassley on January 5th told a reporter that on January 6th he would be counting the votes because Mike Pence wouldn't be able to. And what the hell is that all about? Because
and I remember that.
Yeah.
And you know, I've got through that, what is it called? The Atlantic Political Reporter has the pictures of Tommy Tuberville in the Trump International Hotel.
Yep.
Oh, well.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, Mildred. I've seen them, and I don't understand why Merrick Garland and the Justice Department have not investigated these members of Congress. You've got, Andrew Clyde, I believe his name is, was, or no, it wasn't Clyde. It was it Loudermilk? I'm forgetting which one,
Loudermilk.
but one of them was
No,
giving
Loudermilk.
tours.
That's Loudermilk.
That was Loudermilk, okay. Barry Loudermilk, right? He was giving tours to people who were taking pictures of secure areas. I mean, you know, this is not even a secret. Why is this guy still in Congress? Why isn't he talking? Why isn't he in front of a grand jury? Lauren Boebert was live tweeting Nancy Pelosi's position in the Capitol building as a mob was looking. I don't understand why members of Congress have been cut a pass on this, other than that, you know, apparently Merrick Garland is a complete wimp. I can't come up with any other explanation.
Oh, and also, what was it? Oh, yeah. And then RAGA. What is RAGA? Republican Attorney General's Association?
Yeah, they were promoting the insurrection, or the rally that preceded the insurrection. You're absolutely right. Mildred, I got to run, but thank you for the call. It's 10 minutes before the hour. Back with your calls in just a moment. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. And welcome back. 10 minutes before the hour, and Robin in Macon, Georgia. Hey, Robin, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. I was just concerned about why you don't address the illegals coming across the border. I've listened to your show lots of times. I enjoy it, but you never address that issue. And
it's not a good thing, Robin. I'll tell you right up front. It's not a good thing. This is not how countries should be run.
It's not a good thing. Why don't the Democrats address that?
They have been trying to for the better part of 10 years that I'm personally aware of. The Democrats have been trying to pass comprehensive immigration reform that would strengthen our border, that would strengthen our border patrol, that would crack down on employers who hire people who are here illegally, which would, you know, reduce the giant magnet that draws people to this country. And Republicans have absolutely refused to go along with any conversation about this in the House or in the Senate. The reason why is because Republicans view this issue as a winner for them. As long as the border is a problem, the Republicans can use this to appeal to the racist white base of the GOP. And you know, it's just that simple. They absolutely refuse to go along with it. And in fact, the Republicans are committed to making it worse. If you Google border open and member of Congress, what you will find is that there are over 100 Republican members of Congress. I've documented this with multiple articles. Over 100 members of Congress, Republican members of Congress, who have publicly said the border is wide open, which essentially is saying to everybody south of Texas, everybody south of the border, is saying, come on in. You will not find a single Democrat outside of Joe Manchin who said it once. Other than him, with that one statement, you will not find a single Democrat who is saying the border is wide open, please come on in. But Republicans are saying this, and then their words are being turned into brochures and flyers that are being used by coyotes in Venezuela, in Mexico, in Guatemala, in Honduras, saying, here, look at Ted Cruz, the senator from Texas, says the border is wide open. So just give me $1,000 and I'll get you to that border and you can just walk right across. And people believe it because it's coming from Republican senators. Republicans are loving this. They you know.
How do we address and get something done about this?
Well, if you want Congress to pass comprehensive immigration reform, you're going to have to get Republicans to go along with it, and they absolutely refuse, and they've been refusing for over a decade. That's the problem, Robin, right there. Brenda in Petersburg, Virginia. Hey, Brenda, what's up? Brenda, I'm trying it again. Maybe your phone is muted? I'm not hearing Brenda. Okay, let's try Bob in San Luis Obispo, California. Hey, Bob, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, you were asking about liberal, and I remember a quote from John F. Kennedy where he was talking about being accused of being a liberal.
Yes.
And he gave a very fiery definition of what a liberal meant. And he said, if that makes me a liberal, then I'm proud to be called a liberal.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Hang on just a second. I think I've even got that clip. Hang on.
I've heard about your show many times.
Yeah, maybe not. JFK. Huh. I thought I had it, but
anyway,
I'm not seeing it. Anyway, yeah.
I'm curious, too, like you said, why the split? Why does the United States have the liberal definition of someone who cares, whereas Europe is someone who doesn't care?
What do you mean?
Well, a neoliberal in Europe is a right-winger. That's someone who doesn't care about anybody else but themselves. Whereas a liberal in the United States...
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. By the way, I found the clip. Sean, if you can bring my computer up, I can play it for people because, people may not be familiar with this. This is John Kennedy during the 1960 election.
What do our opponents mean when they apply to us the label liberal? If by liberal they mean, as they want people to believe, someone who is soft in his policies abroad, who is against local government, and who is unconcerned with the taxpayer's dollar, then the record of this party and its members demonstrate that we are not that kind of liberal. But if by a liberal they mean someone who looks ahead and not behind, someone who welcomes new ideas without rigid reactions, someone who cares about the welfare of the people, their health, their housing, their schools, their jobs, their civil rights and their civil liberties, someone who believes that we can break through the stalemate and suspicions that grip us in our policies abroad, if that is what they mean by a liberal, then I'm proud to say that I'm a liberal.
There you go. That was before the Liberal Club of New York City, as I recall. So
excellent.
There you go,
Thank
Bob.
you, Tom.
Yeah, good talking to you, Bob. Thank you very much for the call. I guess that's we got this fact check. By the way, there's Vivek Ramaswamy is climbing in the polls right now. He's like a mini Trump, and he's doing this whole he's hating on immigrants, which is weird because his parents are immigrants. But he's figured out how to pander to the racist right-wing base in the Republican Party. Well, now people are starting to talk about what kind of scams did this guy run to become almost a billionaire? Keep an eye on this one. This is going to get weird. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires all of us, and that includes you. So get out there, get active, tag, you're it. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great afternoon. Be good to yourself and the people around you, and stay safe.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
2 days. That's it. 2 days. Today and tomorrow. This is the end of the pledge drive, nearly. And, we're still a little behind. Really need your help here. 877-378-8669 is the phone number. If you want to support Free Speech TV, become a supporter of our program, of the network in general, be part of what we're doing, become part of a movement, in my opinion, that's actually helping transform America for the better. We're getting some traction here. The call volume is up. The listenership is apparently up. We don't subscribe to Nielsen or anything like that, but every indication I'm seeing is that Free Speech TV is successful at getting the word out. And I especially want to thank those of you who have been telling your friends and neighbors and relatives and acquaintances about Free Speech TV and about our program as well. I get notes from people. I see things on Twitter. Hey, heard about Free Speech TV? Just discovered you on Free Speech TV, et cetera. It's great. And, it's an important stuff. I mean, Free Speech TV is a really important venue that has information you're just not going to find anywhere else. I mean, Big Pharma owns the commercial television networks. You'll never hear them talk about pharmacy benefit managers or how Big Pharma is ripping you out. They just won't talk about it. Just like the oil industry owns them, just like the military industrial complex owns them. So, we need independent voices, and you've got one right here. And it needs your help. Number one, if if we can hit our goal of the $210,000, we will get that additional $10,000 that our frontline funders have put together for us. And number two, well, I guess that's number two is help us out. You know, let's hit our larger goal and fund this network for another quarter. Special thanks to the frontline funders, Andrew in San Diego, California, Ed and Yvonne in Pennsylvania, Bill in Boise, Idaho, Sheila and in Cochise, Arizona, Brenda in Coppers Cove, Texas, Carol in Bandon, Oregon, Charlene in Houston, Texas, Diane in Avalon, California, Diane in Santa Rosa, California, Joe in Washington, D.C., Mac and Tiana in Cowdrey, Colorado, Mike in Tippecanoe County, Indiana, Reggie in Raleigh, North Carolina, Sam in Desert Hot Spring, California, Steve in McLean, Virginia, Suzanne in Catlett, Virginia, Tracy in Jacksonville, Oregon, and Bobby and Vivian in La Puente, California. There are a bunch of premiums with one-time gifts. There's two ways to give. There's the one-time gift where you just call up and say, you know, yes, here, $50 or $100 or $300 or whatever. And then there's the sustaining membership, which is pretty important. It's becoming a more and more important part of Free Speech TV. And that is where people give a regular monthly amount, excuse me, typically a fairly small amount, you know, $5, $10, $15, $25 a month, something like that. And they just, you know, ding your credit card every month, and you can turn it off anytime you want. You can just call them up and say stop, or tell them in advance how many months to do it for. And, you know, it works out really well, and that way they can budget. So with your one-time gifts, with a $20 one-time gift, you can have your choice of the Proud Student of Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Free Speech TV window cling, or the I'm Voting Are You car magnet. With a $50 gift, you get the Free Speech TV keychain and the window cling, or a Free Speech TV fall canvas tote bag, which is a really pretty little tote bag here that I really like. This tote bag is just cool. That's with a $50 gift. With the $75 gift, there's the Free Speech TV baseball cap or the official Thom Hartmann Program mug. With a $120 gift, there is the Free Speech TV t-shirt or an autographed copy of The Hidden History of American Democracy, my newest book. Just came out. Well, came out a few months ago, but, you know, recently came out. This is, I think, one of the very best. This is one of my favorites. Or you can get Sonali's new book, Rising Up, The Power of Narrative and Pursuing Racial Justice. Or David Pakman's new book, Think Like a Detective, A Kid's Guide to Critical Thinking. Isn't that great? David's writing children's books. That's wonderful. Anyhow, those are all your choice of any one of those three gifts with a $120 gift or donation. With a $200 gift, there is the Free Speech TV hoodie, which is really warm. I mean, winter is coming. It's cold here in Oregon now, and it probably is where you live. And there's the hoodie, Free Speech on the one side, the Future's Inclusive on the other. So that's with the $200 gift. With a $240 gift, you can join our virtual meet and greet where we hang out for an hour, and it's not recorded, and we can use any kind of language we want, and you know, it's very candid. Or with a $1,000 gift, you can come to Portland and visit us, or you can get the entire set of the Hidden History books, all 9 of them, autographed by the author, that would be me, sent to you. Fill a bookshelf with 9 books. Make a great, great holiday gift, too. So that's the bottom line. Those are the gifts. Please call now, 877-378-8669, and help Free Speech TV survive for another 3 months. Thank you.